Thank you. Let's call our meeting to order, and I will ask the treasurer to call the roll.
Here. President Baker.
Present.
Mr. Brown. Vice President Cole.
Present.
Ms. Gibbs.
Here.
Mr. Ragland.
Here.
Ms. Reyes.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. We have some guests here from Troop 734. I'm going to ask them to approach the podium. They are led by Rich Canary. The Scouts are Lance Canary, Marshall Hunker, Dylan Evans, and Aaron Canary. I'm going to ask them to come on up front. They are here working on a merit badge. And so we're going to ask them to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask everyone to be upstanding for the pledge, please.
Scout salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated.
I didn't see here. These two have not showed up. Okay. And these two are switching, they said.
Okay, thank you very much. Would you mind sharing these with my colleagues?
What?
Just pass those out to my colleagues. Give each one one.
Okay. Thank you. I can do that. He just takes them all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Scouts from Troop 734, for being here this evening, and good luck on your merit badge. Tonight, we also have a special student performance that I'm looking forward to. Miss Dylan Murphy, a sophomore at Northland High School, is here to sing for us. Miss Murphy, are you among us? Please come on up to the podium. Miss Murphy won second place at the Opera Columbus Youth Performing Arts Competition in October at East High School. Miss Murphy won a $300 prize and a leading role in the production The Journey, a celebration of African American music and culture and civil rights movement figures like Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks. Please join me in welcoming Miss Murphy to our meeting.
I was listening to the ocean. I saw a face in the sand, but when I picked it up, then it vanished away from my hand. No, I had a dream I was 7, climbing my way in a tree. I saw a piece of heaven waiting impatient for me, no. And I was running far away to a world I love someday. Nobody knows, nobody knows. And I was dancing in the rain, felt alive and I can't complain. But no, take me home where I belong. I can't take it anymore. I was painting pictures. A picture was a painting of you, and for a moment I thought you were there, but then again it wasn't true, no. And all this time I have been lying, lying in secret to myself. I've been putting sorrow the first place on my shelf, la-dee-da. And I was running far away to a world I love someday. Nobody knows, nobody knows. And I was dancing in the rain, felt alive and I can't complain. And no, take me home where I belong. I got no other place to go. No, take me home where I belong. I got no other place to go. No, take me home where I belong. I can't take it anymore. I kept running for a soft place to fall. And I kept running for a soft place to fall. And I kept running for a soft place to fall. Ooh, and I kept running for a soft place to fall. And I was running far away to a world I love someday. But no, take me home where I belong. I got no other place to go. No, take me home where I belong. I got no other place to go. No, take me home where I belong. No, 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 take me home where I belong. No, 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 take me home where I belong. No, 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 take me home where I belong. I can't take it anymore.
Ms. Murphy, would you come back to the podium? Just tell us the name of the song and the artist and anything else you'd like to say. And I wonder if, are there any friends or family of our performer with us this evening? Raise your hand. And all right, thank you very much. Any of your teachers here or anyone else from school? All right, thank you for being here. Yes.
The song is called Runaway by Aurora. It's about finding yourself and knowing that you do belong in this place and that you don't feel lost.
Thank you very much for being here tonight. We appreciate it. That was outstanding. Thank you very much for taking the time to be with us this evening. We appreciate it. Yeah, an incredible talent. I think you have a room full of new fans this evening. Thank you. All right. Colleagues, what I'd like to do now is ask the Vice President to offer a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Board of Education recess into executive session per Section 121.22 G4 of the Ohio Revised Code to prepare, conduct, or review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer?
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
Vice President Cole? Yes. Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you. The board will now recess into executive session. This should be a very short session. We'll be back just as soon as we can. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience. The board has returned. And let's, colleagues, if there's no objection, before we review and adopt the agenda, I would like to move the I Know I Can presentation up to include it in item 5, board recognitions, as the first board recognition item. I'd also like to insert a quick announcement on Veterans Day as part of item 5 as well, if there are no objections. So I'll briefly read through the agenda we have before us this evening. We do have a number of board recognitions first. We will then take public testimony. There are 7 individuals signed up to speak to the board this evening. We will then hear our direct reports, after which we will have board development and board matters. We will take up our consent agenda subsequent to that. After that, we'll have board announcements, points of pride. We will then recess into executive session. Is there a motion that we adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer?
President Baker?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Here from I Know I Can, our longtime partner in this historic and unique partnership is Miss Katina Fullen, and I would ask her to approach the podium, and I do believe that she has Becky Shackelford with her. At least I saw her earlier. I'd ask her to come up as well, and anyone else. Did I see the amazing T Street back there? Would you mind coming up as well? And any other members of your board you'd like to have join you at the podium? They are here to share some fabulous news with us. Ms. Fullen, good evening.
How are you? Good
Great.
evening.
Good evening.
So we will be brief tonight, but we have some exciting news to share. And let me just do a quick reminder of I Know I Can's mission, 31-year partnership with Columbus City Schools, and founded by 4 amazing community leaders, Bob Weiler, Techie Shackelford, Cliff Tyree, and Art Kobacker. And we have Techie here with us tonight. So as you know I Can has been providing grants and scholarships for Columbus City Schools students. Well, actually, students in the district have been earning grants and scholarships for years now, for 31 years, and students have earned now from I Know I Can specifically $42 million in grants and scholarships to fund their college educations. Yep. And so over the last 9 months, we have had a board-level committee that has been looking at our grants and scholarships and also looking at the cost of college, the unmet need that our students have every year trying to get either a certificate or a 2 or 4 year degree, and then also the amount of student loan debt that they are taking on. We also have challenged ourselves as an organization, and the board really did a great job of challenging our organization to look at the financial aid that we have available for our students and really look at making sure that the dollars are meaningful, that the dollars are doing what we wanted them to do 31 years ago, which was help fill that financial gap for college. And if we all think back to 31 years ago and the cost of college and the unmet financial need that our students had, that was about $1,700. So our $1,200 grant really helped students close that financial gap. Fast forward to today, we know what the average cost of college is, and we know what the average debt is that our students are taking on. So this is a small step forward for the students of the district and for I Know I Can. But we have made the decision as an organization to set up a new scholarship fund that will launch with the class of 2020. And we are investing $4.5 million over the next few years in the Dream Big Scholarship for students. So this is another opportunity that students can earn these dollars for college, and we are confident that they will. They've never let us down. We know that they are motivated and hardworking and super smart, and we are confident that they will take advantage of this opportunity. We have 3 goals for this scholarship. One is to increase the number of students who complete important college access milestones, whether that's the FAFSA, completing college applications, taking the ACT or SAT. We know there are lots of steps that our students need to complete in order to be college ready, and this is one of them, one of the goals of this scholarship. The other is to really help close the financial gap for college. We know this won't close it completely, but we know that it will help. And then 2, our ultimate goal, as is everyone else here, and that's to continue to improve student outcomes around college enrollment and completion. So we will award this money starting with the class of 2020. It's a scholarship of $3,500, renewable for 4 years for students to take advantage of with some qualifications. So a 2.75 GPA. You must be Pell Grant eligible, enroll in college full-time, and then complete the I Know I Can college access milestones. We believe we will give out about 100, maybe a few more than that this first year. And here's the part that I think we are all most excited about is that we're allocating a certain number of scholarships. We're going back and forth right now what that number is, but that every high school will have at least 4 scholarships that they will be able to award in the building. So this is not students from one high school competing against their peers at another high school. We will award the scholarships in every high school this year, and that's something new for us. Good. So now you have, just the last slide is just a reminder that we have these 3 funding opportunities, and we were able to share with students and families this past weekend, thanks to the engagement office with CCS, that we hosted this special workshop for scholarships and applications this weekend in partnership with the school counselors, and I Know I Can, that students got the opportunity to get the applications for both the Founders Scholarship, which is a reminder is $10,000 a year for 4 years. The Dream Big Scholarship, our new one, that's $3,500 a year for 4 years, up to 4 years. And the I Know I Can grant, which is how we started, and that is the $1,200 grant renewable for up to 4 years. And I do want to add that we really see this as a partnership with the schools. We met with a group of school counselors to get their feedback before we launched this. They had great input for us, and they've agreed to serve on a team in each building, and the buildings will work together to look at the applications and make decisions on the selection of the students per building. So it was a real partnership with the counseling team, so we appreciate that. But I just want to make sure that I point out we've got T Street here, who is our board president, and hopefully will continue to be next year. We vote in December, so hopefully she's still on board to do that. Techie, I want to just make sure that she has a minute to say hello, but I have 2 students with me, and Jean, I did not forget about you. I have 2 students, well, former students, or I Know I Can alum, that I just want you to just quickly hear from before we wrap up.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Hines, and I'm a graduate of both Independence High School and the University of Cincinnati. And I am currently the college success coach at Whitehall High School and a prior AmeriCorps college guide. So I Know I Can has played a consistent and pivotal role in my life during high school and in college, and that is why it means so much to me and my family now. Being one of 6 children to a then single mother, I Know I Can helped my twin sister and I know that we could both dream big and go to college. They were not only concerned about us getting into college, but also through quarterly meetings and constant check-ins with my then advisor, Josie Evans Phillips. They let us know that they were in this college journey with us. The I Know I Can grant helped lower college tuition, and it also helped pay for our books. So thanks to I Know I Can's financial support and moral support, I can now say that I'm a college graduate today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marvel Sine. I am a 2015 East High School graduate and a 2019 Ohio Wesleyan graduate. And a former I Know I Can grant recipient. So I Know I Can really helped me in school because, well, as a foreign immigrant, my mother really stressed the importance of an education. But what was never talked about was how we were going to pay for that. I Know I Can really stepped in and helped support me in a way that she couldn't. Not only financially, but with their retention program. They were there weekly for office hours to help me mentally and emotionally. So because of them, I can now say that I have a college degree, and I'm taking this time to do the same for those that are coming.
Thank you.
Would any of your board members like to speak? Jackie Shackelford?
I never don't talk if
Right,
anybody
I
asks,
know.
so I have to. I've been around longer than anybody in the room, I think, because I've been around every group I'm in. I've been around longer than anybody else. But there has never been anything in my life outside of my family that has meant more to me than my association with the Columbus Public Schools. I taught in the schools. I've been around ever since then. And I am so glad to have had the opportunity to work with so many board people who have made these grants possible. And I can only say this, so when someone asks me, why are you still around? Every time you meet these students, you know exactly why you're here. And you know that you'll stay here until the day they put you under, which is not going to be very soon in my case. I'm going to hang around for a long time because you're wonderful and we appreciate you. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's take a photograph. If you wouldn't mind coming up front, we're going to take a photograph real quick. Thank you. Everybody come right up front.
I just make sure the I Know I Can staff who's here join us because they do all of the hard work with us every day.
Back here?
Yep, back here. All right, come on. See, I don't have that issue. Do you want to? You want to see it? You want to? I'll take it. You know, I'm still your level. Yes. Oh, I better come back down. I'm like, come on.
All right, everybody smile.
Why are you facing us? Okay. Is this good, Scott? Is it look good?
Thanks, Scott.
So proud of you. You didn't tell me you had a niece that went to DC and everything else.
Thank you. 2 days in a row. How you doing? Good.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
President Baker, would any of the I Know I Can grant recipients? Any of the I Know I Can grant recipients? Anybody else who's gotten the I Know I Can grant?
If you're an I Know I Can grant recipient, just raise your hand.
In the audience?
Anybody in the audience who's an I Know I Can grant recipient? All right, thank you again to I Know I Can. And now, I would like to ask Major Klepek, yes, he's still here. Thank you for being here tonight. Just to briefly talk to us about Veterans Day, which is coming up on the 11th, and to talk to us a little bit about the parade and the involvement of some of our bands in the parade. Good evening.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I'm retired Major Ben Klepek. I have the privilege and honor to teach Air Force Junior ROTC at Fort Hays Arts and Academic High School under the leadership of Dr. Ruffin, who has to approve everything the students do. Those cadets were recognized as one of the top 5% of the units out of 900 units worldwide. So I have the privilege to work with these students who want to do a lot in the community, and I can't say thanks enough for all the support I'm getting from Columbus City Schools. And even Mayor Coleman came to our high school, inspired our cadets, inspired the students. So I appreciate all the support. Why I'm here tonight is our Veterans Day Parade, which is coming up this Friday, November 8th. This Veterans Day Parade, we're honoring the theme, World War II veterans. At the same time, Columbus City Schools has 10 high school bands participating, 3 junior ROTC units in the parade. At the same time, they've asked Air Force Junior ROTC cadets to lead the parade with the Milvets banner, just based on their community service. So they're getting recognized for what they're doing in the community. Thanks for Columbus City School. Mr. Paul Brown is also helping us out with the sound system. So thank you very much for all Columbus City Schools is doing. We've got an excellent Veterans Day Parade coming up this Friday, 12 noon. Starts at the corner of Nationwide and High Street. We're going to go down High Street, right into Broad Street. There'll be a reviewing stand. And then we're going to have all the World War II veterans in a bus from Cardinal Transportation. They donated the bus and driver. So it's going to be a little chilly on Friday, but we're taking care of those World War II veterans. Thanks for your time tonight, and thanks for all your support.
Thank you.
And it's important to note that those World War II veterans who will be participating are between the ages of 95 and 105, and they are all walking, one with a cane. Yeah, so, which is amazing. Are there any veterans in the room? Please stand and be recognized if you are a veteran. Thank you very much. Let's move on to our next recognition, School Psychology Awareness Week. The week of November 11th through 15th is School Psychology Awareness Week. The theme of this year's celebration is Find Your Focus. The National Association of School Psychologists described the theme as action-oriented, flexible, and relevant to all age groups. In honor of the work of our school psychologists, I would like to invite Mr. Phil Hayes, Vice President of the CEA, and school psychology supervisors Dr. Danita Thornton and Dr. Robin Floyd to come to the podium to receive the recognition. And Board Member, are you prepared to offer that resolution? Board Member Reyes, please.
So as they walk, finding your focus can help each of us set goals, identify action steps, communicate need, and engage in discussion to help create the connections necessary for students to develop critical academic and social-emotional skills. And school psychologists help parents and educators to find their focus by fostering healthy social, emotional development, and are the school-based experts in the students' learning and psychological development. And it is imperative that our society and community supports this natural propensity and right to learn by investing in education as a top priority and advocating for the needs of our students. And school psychologists are on the front line in the drive to advance the goals of violence prevention, intervention, and response in our schools. And school psychologists are leaders in delivering mental health services to the students, and it is appropriate that the Columbus City Schools takes the time to recognize the important and vital role that school psychologists play in the personal and academic development of our state's children. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Columbus Board of Education recognizes and celebrates the week of November 11th to the 15th of 2019 as School Psychologist Awareness Week. And be it further resolved that the Columbus Board of Education does hereby honor and values the many contributions of the Columbus City Schools psychologists for the impact they have on the lives of our students and families and their positive impact on the community through their tireless efforts. And be it further resolved, the Columbus Board of Education urges all Columbus residents to reflect on the outstanding work of our school psychologists and join the board in expressing our gratitude for the critical role they perform for our students and families each and every day.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. I'm sorry, Mr. Treasurer, I didn't mean to do your job. Call the roll,
Whatever
please.
you'd like, Mr.
No,
President.
yes, please call the roll.
Okay. Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Vice President Hayes, would you like to come to the podium? Thank you very much for taking the time to be here this evening.
Thank you, President Bakers, members of the board. My president could not be here tonight. He's sitting in on peer assistance and review interviews. Otherwise, it would be him saying this. They are vital members of our bargaining unit. We're proud to have them in the association. There are nearly 100 of them within the more than 4,200 highly qualified, caring members of the Columbus Education Association. They do our students, our teachers, our administrators, and our community great service, and we wouldn't have it any other way. We are very proud of them.
Ladies?
Good evening. Thank
Good
you so kindly for this recognition. My name is Dr. Robin Floyd. I also have Dr. Danita Thornton here with me and school psychologist Scott Buckley, who represents our hearing impaired students for the district. Thank you again.
And we'll ask you to come up and join us for a photograph. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, so again, to our school psychology team, we just want to thank you for all of the great work that you do in our schools every day. We appreciate it very much. Let's move on then to, actually next is Ohio Public Education Appreciation Week, which is November 18th through the 22nd. This is a special time of the year when we celebrate the contributions of public education to our great democracy and our way of life. The parents of more than 1.8 million students across Ohio and 50,000 in this city, in our district, are giving public school educators the opportunity to educate their children. It is our great honor and privilege to serve our community in this way. And I'll close with a quote from President John F. Kennedy. He said, "Let us think of education as the means of developing our greatest abilities, because in each of us there is a private hope and dream which, fulfilled, can be translated into benefit for everyone and great strength for the nation." And I have the resolution here, and I will read parts of it. whereas the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, one of the key founding documents of the great state of Ohio, states in part that religion, morality, and knowledge being necessary to good government and the happiness of mankind, schools and the means of education shall forever be encouraged. And whereas Article 6, Section 2 of the Ohio Constitution states in part that the General Assembly shall make such provisions by taxation or otherwise as with the income arising from the school trust fund will secure a thorough and efficient system of common schools throughout the state, thus demonstrating the commitment of the citizens of the great state of Ohio to make provisions for students to obtain a public education. And whereas public schools bring together adults and children, teachers and volunteers, business and civic leaders, and elected officials who all have a stake in public education and play an important role in inspiring children to learn inside and outside the classroom. Whereas the Ohio General Assembly, through the efforts of State Representative John Patterson, enacted Ohio Public Education Appreciation Week through HB 438 of the 131st General Assembly. And whereas the intent of Ohio Public Education Appreciation Week is to encourage public education and affirm its purpose during 1 week in November despite attempts at privatization, and by so doing to send a message to our students, our educators, and our communities that we will support student success and lifelong learning. Now therefore be it resolved that the Columbus Board of Education hereby recognizes and celebrates November 18th through 22nd, 2019 as Ohio Public Education Appreciation Week, and be it further resolved that the Columbus Board of Education calls upon the current General Assembly and Governor DeWine to demonstrate a collective commitment to public education and address the broken school funding system and the flawed local report card, and be it further resolved that the Columbus Board of Education does hereby honor and value the many contributions of Columbus City Schools teachers, support staff, and administrators to the lives of our students and families and the collective positive impact of our district in our community. And be it further resolved that the Columbus Board of Education encourages all Columbus residents to join Columbus City Schools in supporting and advocating for public education as a pillar of our democracy and a cornerstone of American opportunity that gives all students the foundation they need to understand and appreciate our nation's values of freedom, civility, and equality. That is a motion. Moved and seconded. Discussion? Comments? Mr. Treasurer, please call the roll.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Ms. Adair? President Baker?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. And I do believe I saw State Rep Erica Crawley in the audience. Is she here? Yes. All right. I hate to put you on the spot. I do this every time you come. Would you like to come up and say just a few words about the value of public education and why it's so important? And happy Veterans Day to you. I know you're a veteran. I know you served.
Thank you, President. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and the audience as well as the rest of the school board members. I mean, we already know how important public education is in making sure that every child in Ohio has a right to quality education no matter what their zip code is. And I can speak directly to Representative Patterson and his commitment to make sure that this General Assembly, the 133rd General Assembly, fixes the broken school funding formula that we've been currently operating under for the past 20 plus years. He has a legislation, House Bill 305, with Representative Cupp. We actually are hearing more testimony on that bill tomorrow in the House Finance Committee. I do sit on that committee. Would welcome any interested party testimony as well as oral or written in support of their effort to fix that broken funding formula and make sure, especially here in Columbus, which is the largest school district in the state, that our students are at the forefront and in the minds of my colleagues, as well as the leadership in the House and Senate, to understand how we have been so far under the cap for the past few years, and using all of the resources that have been available to give children an opportunity, and is still not what children need. And so I would appreciate any support from the members of the audience as well, because this will be a partnership. This is we can't do it on our own. As I said before, last time I was here, it has to be a collaborative effort to change school funding and how we have been going about it going forward. So I would love to continue to have dialogue about that.
Thank you, Representative Crawley. Actually, I'd like to present this to you, and feel free to go back and share it with members of your committee and House leadership. And why don't you come up to the front and take a photograph with us as well, so we can stress the importance of this week.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And did we call the roll? Mr. Treasurer, have we called the roll on this? Yes. Well done.
Thank you so much for this. All right, one more resolution. Thank you, Representative Crawley, for being here. National Education Support Professionals Day, November 20th, is a celebration of the great work by our education support professionals like bus drivers, food service team members, instructional assistants, child care attendants, intervention aides, and all of the dedicated members of the Columbus School Employees Association. They are the backbone of this organization, and we honor and respect the contributions they provide on a daily basis for our students. And I'd like to ask President Lois Carson, President of CSEA, and her team to join us at the podium to receive this recognition. Come on up front. And I'm going to call on Board Member Adair to offer a resolution.
Thank you. Education Support Professionals Day was first created in 1987 after the National Education Association's Representative Assembly called for the creation of a way to honor contributions of school support staff. Education support professionals are often the first people our children encounter on a daily basis. They are integral to the education process and the academic success of our students. Education support professionals work tirelessly to ensure our children are ready to be productive citizens and serve our students and communities with care and professionalism. It takes a team of instructional assistants, school nurses, school social workers, school counselors, school psychologists, secretaries, bus drivers, food service workers, custodians, maintenance workers, groundkeepers, and many other dedicated Columbus City School employees to support the work of our teachers and administrators. Education support professionals are the backbone and unsung heroes of public education. Therefore, let it be resolved that the Columbus City School Board of Education hereby recognizes and celebrates November 20th, 2019 as Education Support Professionals Day. Let it further be resolved that the Columbus Board of Education does hereby honor and value the many contributions of Columbus City Schools education support professionals for the impact they have on the lives of our children and families and their positive impact on our community. And be it further resolved that the Columbus Board of Education urges all Columbus residents to reflect on the outstanding work of our education support professionals and join the board in expressing our gratitude to them for their critical role in the lives of our students and families. Thank you.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Moved and seconded. Seeing no comment, Mr. Treasurer?
Mr. Ragland.
Yes.
Ms. Reyes.
Yes.
Ms. Adair. President Baker.
Yes.
Vice President Cole. Ms. Gibbs.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. President Carson.
President Baker and Vice President Cole and members of the board. This evening, I have the honor to stand behind me as always. They always have my back. Ida Jones, she's the president for Intervention Aids. Instructional assistant. Stephanie Wally, she's also over CCAs on the bus and Intervention Aids, and she supports Terrell Davis as the president for bus drivers. Derek Fields, he's here this evening representing head custodians. And new to my bunch, it's not new, but he's newly drafted, is Ken White. He represents delivery service drivers. As you all know, normally I speak from the heart, and I very seldom come prepared with anything pre-written, but I saw this when Dr. Stanford sent us the invite, and it struck home, and it made me think about the work we do on a daily basis. And I had a lot of conversation with my pastor about it. It says accessibility is being able to get in the building. Diversity is getting invited to the table. Inclusion is having a voice at the table. Belonging is having your voice heard at the table. And sometimes the members I represent, we get tired, we get worn out, and we get frustrated because we feel like we don't have a seat at the table. And I said to my pastor, I'm so tired. We don't have a seat at the table. And he responded back to me, the room's only so big. They can only move the table so far. And if I know you and the members you represent, you'll keep fighting and you'll keep following that table wherever it goes. So on behalf of the member I represent and all of my partners here represent, wherever you move that table to, how far it goes in the room, we will be at the table, and we thank you for the opportunity to have a voice at the table, to have a seat at the table, because there was a time when we didn't have that respect. So we thank you for that on behalf of the Columbus Public School employees that we represent, better known as OPSI ASME. Thank you for this honor.
Back here.
Go around that way.
Please join us at the stage for a photograph.
Everybody. Congratulations. Oh, I'm sorry, we got you. Good to see you. All right. Good. How you doing? Come on, girl. I got you here in the middle. Are you good? Oh, no. The height.
Mr. Ragland represents.
Derek, right there. Come on, Derek. Huh?
Smile. Yes, beautiful.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, now she wants love. Well, everybody hurry up, but now she wants.
Thank you. Thank you again to our partners in OPSI, CSEA. Thank you very much for your hard work, your dedication, your commitment, the things that you do every day that make everything else that we do in the district possible. Thank you very much. Let's move on to public comment. We do have a number of individuals who have signed up, 7 actually, to address the board this evening. Each of you will have 4 minutes. I'll call your name, I'll state the topic for which you signed up to speak, and board action requested. So when I call your name, please approach the podium. You'll see a timer behind me. It'll count down your 4 minutes. First speaker this evening, Kathleen Bailey. Topic, trolley barn. Board action requested, support the tax sharing of the trolley barn. Madam Chair, good evening.
Good evening, President Baker, Vice President Cole, Treasurer Baharek, Internal Auditor Smith, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Denise Dixon. Very briefly, I recall when I went to kindergarten, we had four requirements in order to go to school. Number one, we had to be able to sit still. We had to be able to be quiet. We had to be able to obey the rules, and we had to know who was in charge. There was kind of a understanding between the community and the school on what was expected of each other. I want to fast forward to that, and I found that the understanding between community and school is a little more challenging now. We have a very high rate of divorce. We have a high percentage of single-parent homes. We have people who cannot afford good living spaces, who can't afford to stay in their houses, and so that their children have consistent educational opportunity, and all these things. And on top of that, we have the electronic world that has kind of inundated our children's minds. So what I find now is that we need to kind of reconnect, and I know the school does, the Columbus School Board does do some things in that area, but kind of a reconnect with the community. And what this project that we're talking about, the trolley barn, which the Near East Area Commission supported unanimously, does a little bit of that. We have an old building that is historically significant to us. They're going to do that. But there's another component to it that we're really concerned about, and that was the food component. In the tax sharing portion, the developers would like to use that tax share to develop a green grocer, which would bring fresh food into an area that has been bereft of those produces. To me, this is where it really brings home to what the connection between the community and the school, because it helps. These are the kind of activities that are going to help stabilize our community. I believe that I hear all the time that we want to work and fix the schools, but I think that's a little unfair evaluation of the schools, because in order to fix the schools, we also have to fix the homes, because you are born and at home 3, 4, 5 years before you ever get to school. So we have to look at that partnership again, that when I was going to school, it was kind of there. The community kind of knew what the school wanted, the school kind of knew what the community wanted, and we need to bring that back. This is a golden opportunity to do that, and I'd actually like to see more developers get involved in, when they come into our community, to look at a portion, what they can do to actually help us stabilize those neighborhoods, to help us bring children back, and to have children in homes where they can go to a good school every day. When they're going to this school for 2 months and then going somewhere else for another couple of months, that's not good. But this is not going to fix everything. But what I like about the fact that the trolley barn folks that want to fix up this building want to include this piece is that this is a good step in a good dialogue and creating a relationship where we're starting to look at development that includes what is it going to take to revitalize our communities. A revitalized community is also going to be a positive step to the work that you do in making sure that we improve our school systems and keep them where they should be. So I want to thank you, but I want to let you know we support it 100%. We like the fact that they're taking an opportunity to help us in the long term of developing our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Bailey. Are there any clarifying questions for the speaker, colleagues? Board Member Adair?
Thank you for being here. As a past chair, I know that you probably had very robust conversation at your area commission meeting about this, and I'm wondering if you could share maybe some comments from neighbors, some things that you considered as an area commission in unanimously supporting this project.
Well, when this project was coming about, they needed some zoning variances, and one of the things we always do is we have a site hearing. We actually go to the location and discuss what it is and the development. And one of the big topic in the conversation was the food portion of it, the green grocery portion. And they wanted to know what kinds of people are going to be involved, who's going to be allowed to participate. Is it a membership thing? Is it for the community? And that was a major part of the conversation. And the neighbors were very happy about it because it is going to benefit a lot of people, but what I'm saying is it's also one of those building blocks to start bringing communities back, which in effect has a positive effect on the kind of work you do. But that was a big part of the conversation, was the grocery part. Kind of like we're going back to the old way it was. The people are really interested in that of having those foods, services within walking distance.
Any other clarifying questions, colleagues? Chair Bailey, thank you for taking the time. Have a good night. Good to see you. Our next speaker is Larry Price. Topic, trolley barn. Board action requested support trolley barn legislation. Representative Price, please approach the podium. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. You know, telling a preacher 4 minutes, as long as the deacon don't say amen, we'll be all right. I asked them to come up with me because I want to thank Kathleen and the Nearest Area Commission for their support and endorsement of it. As a former ward committeeman, a Nearest Area Commissioner and state rep, I live on Franklin Park by choice. This is my wife, Charlotte. I got to do that because I got to go home. Amen. But we live here by choice. And what you see behind me is over. I've been there 40 years. We got some 50 years. We got some 35 years. We got some that was born and raised and grew up there. We have some 2 blocks down. We have some right in the backyard. So I'll try to get through this. 60 years. Okay, we got 60 years here. So that's a lot of years, and 3 of us live directly behind the trolley barn. So I'm going to try to capsulize this if I may. How do you put into words 40 years of living behind the trolley barn? Well, let me give you, and let me apologize in advance because some of the things I'm going to say will be a little graphic, but it's the truth. First of all, most of you will go home and not have to watch wild possums, raccoons, and a whole lot of rats as they cross your alley, as you pull into the alley to pull into your garage. And that's what it's like to live behind the trolley barn. The grass is roughly about 4 feet normally, 5 feet normally. Brad has done a good job lately of keeping it cut, but over 40 years, trust me, no one was really cutting the grass, and that harbors that kind of environment. Most of you watch your children go to school, those that are blessed enough to be home. But I've watched a lot of children walk past the trolley barn, and in the old days, and my wife's a school teacher, but it was Franklin Alternative, it was Fair Avenue, and it was East High School. All of those schools are accessible by walking by the trolley barn. Now think about it, you walk by that every day, and then you go sit next to somebody that lives in a better community, a cleaner community. What does that do for your self-pride? Most of you go home and turn down your alleys to your garages, but you won't be as I was, interrupted by a drug deal one night. Caught me off guard. I turned into the alley, and the gentleman simply pulled his coat back and put his hand on his gun. I looked at him. He looked at me. I looked at him. He looked at me, I looked at him, he looked at me, and then he finally waved me on. And what made me nervous was that I didn't know where he lived, but he knew where I lived. Because I pulled into a garage not 2 feet from where he was standing with a truck. And that is the kind of blight that the trolley barn has been and the trauma that it has caused in our community. And then if you've never been fortunate enough to be able to walk down your alley while prostitutes are doing their business, and you stand in the middle of that alley and say, not this alley, you need to take that somewhere else. And so when you have those kind of challenges over the years, you wonder why we're here today. And I want to thank them because most of them would be home right now. But I asked them and they willingly came here because it's important to them. The trolley barn can change the face of that neighborhood. When you look at the environmental hazards, most of us live right across again from it. We don't know what has been there. We know that their buses have been there. We know that oil change. We know that a variety of things have gone on. So we don't know what the contamination from the oil has done and what it does to us right across the front. And again, I live directly 3 houses down. She lives 1 house down. My next door neighbor lives two houses down for years. And I'm younger than I look, but I cut the grass. I gotta watch that time. I cut the grass, literally. Most of you get to cut your own grass, and that's fine. But I have to go out in the alley for over 40 years and literally cut the grass in the alley to make sure that we can drive down the alley, cut branches from trees, and then hop the fence at that time to make sure that the bushes don't come over into the alley so we can have a nice alley that we drive in every day. So those are the kind of issues that we had. And then finally, we talk about it has produced no tax revenues for CCS. But it also has produced no jobs for Franklin Park. There's been no benefits to CCS, and there's no benefits to Franklin Park. So we've come in solidarity, those of us who have lived the trolley barn for the last 40, 50, 60 years, saying to you, this can change the face of our neighbors. We want the same thing that you have. We want a nice neighbor. We want our children to grow up in something that can be respected. But most of all, we want to have pride in our neighborhood the same way you have pride in yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any clarifying questions? Colleagues, any clarifying questions for the speaker?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, all of you, for taking the time to come to the board this evening. All right, our next speaker, Dominique Jackson. Is Dominique Jackson among us this evening? All right, we'll move on to our next speaker, Malachi Dudley. Are you among us this evening? No? All right. Our next speaker, who I do believe is here, Aisha Smith. Topic, accountability of administration. Board action requested. Recognize that the administration is not taking accountability for their errors on behalf of students. Ms. Smith, good evening.
Sorry, I'm nervous.
Take.
Good evening, President Baker, Vice President Cole, Treasurer B, Internal Auditor Smith, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Talisa Dixon. My name is Aisha Smith, and I am here with my daughter Alexia Smith and my other daughter Ariana Smith. I'm actually here because the administration at my daughter's high school has put her in a bad situation with not allowing her to be eligible to play basketball her first half of her season. Alexia has committed to the University of Minnesota. She is a 3.5 GPA, 5th out of her class. Has always been on the honor roll. A very good, outstanding student. And this means a lot to her. And not only that, but this was a situation that, as a parent, I made sure that everything, her schedule, everything was in order. She also did the same, met with administration, made sure that, she was okay, and I was told that she was okay. And then just several weeks ago, we get notice that she's ineligible. So with that being said, I just feel like this is a situation that is out of our hands, and when we weren't the reason why this happened. So I know she wanted to say something also.
Okay, I'm gonna speak for her. I'm her sister. I'm her younger sister, and just seeing my sister like this is just not like. She wants to play her senior year because this is her last year. She expects that she was going to come and play because she didn't think that the stuff was going to get messed up. During the summer, we ended up going into the administrator, and he was saying, "Oh, her schedule is okay. It's okay." And now she's crying and sad because she's not going to be able to play her first half of her senior year of basketball. And as y'all know, we're Lady Nubians and we have a lot of good games. And by the second half, it's just tournament time. She don't want to miss her first half when we have really good games and we need her. Like, not saying like, yeah, we just need her. And yeah, that's it.
Colleagues, are there clarifying questions for these speakers? Mr. Ragland, I believe you were first.
Certainly. Could someone describe in detail what caused the young lady to be ineligible specifically?
I might say we may not be able to discuss that. Let me actually, because of student information, let me actually ask the superintendent to speak to this, see if she's aware. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, I have Luther Johnson, who's the area superintendent. I think he's here in the back, or he's in the overflow. And Dr. Angela Chapman, they will work with the families afterwards. So they're out, he's out the side. Okay.
Is he here?
He's here. Yeah, he's here. And we get all that information to you and back.
The discussion is around student information and protecting
Student.
Right, right. So I'm not going to allow that. I'm not going to allow that question. I am going to ask the area superintendent to immediately meet with the parent.
Yeah.
Board Member Gibbs, have you a clarifying question?
The clarifying question that we believe is this. We want to clarify from the mom, what is the action that you are seeking from the board? What is it that you would like us to do? Or what is the request?
For the board here?
Yes, ma'am.
Two things. One, I want you to be aware of the situation so that a situation like this doesn't happen to another student, and two, whatever help you can give so that my daughter doesn't have to suffer for a mistake that wasn't hers nor mine, and doesn't get to play.
All right, so the area superintendent is prepared to meet with you to have a discussion on this topic right now. He's there. Any other clarifying questions?
I got a question.
Clarifying question, Ms. Gibbs?
In a separate report, can you ask our athletic director to provide to us what constitutes eligibility and what excludes people from eligibility, and to provide that to the board either
Is that your question?
by tomorrow? Yeah, but they can give it to us tomorrow. I know we got a full agenda.
Okay.
But we will find out what qualifies as eligibility and what disqualifies you, and then we as a board will have that information to consider.
Yep, I made it.
We can provide that.
Okay.
And Dr. Dixon, someone's about to come and speak to them.
Mr. Johnson is right behind you. He would take you, and there's a conference room next door, and get all the information for us to bring it back to the board.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Vice President Cole, a clarifying question?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to get an idea as to whether or not this ineligibility situation has impacted your commitment or your future action towards college. So there's a commitment to Kentucky at this point?
University of Minnesota.
Minnesota, I'm sorry, Minnesota. And this situation has not impacted that negatively?
It has not, it's just not, it would not be a good look that she's not playing, a whole half of her season. When she does have that commitment, because they do come to some games and like to, see their commits playing and whatnot. So, yeah, but it hasn't, impacted her commitment in that way where
Thank you.
it would take that off. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come down and address the board this evening. Thank you very much for.
Yeah, and thank you for listening.
for doing
Appreciate
that.
it.
He's going to speak to you right now. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move on to our next speaker, Mr. David Rhodes. Topic, athletics and academics. Board action. I would like the board to take repercussions regarding athletics. Good evening.
Good evening, President Baker, Vice President Cole, Treasurer B, Internal Auditor Smith, members of the board, and Superintendent Dixon. I know the young lady right there. I'm not going to go into details. I know exactly what happened because I'm over at the school. And some of the questions you could have answered, look, I can go there and tell you exactly what happened. It ain't no hidden secret. The mom and dad was there, but I'm not going to get into that because it's going to be handled right there. About academics. I heard somebody said stewardship and wanting money and everything. I know quite a few of these board members that are on here for a while, and I see some other people in this room that I've known for a while. You can't get a lot of money. If you're a stewardship of money, then I need to make sure that you're accountable for that money and the money actually is working. There's programs in your building, things that have happened for years that ain't got nothing to do with helping somebody get academic ready. I was at Glenwood Rec Center yesterday. Nationwide was in there. They were helping volunteer, doing packages and all that. Just happened. And you know what? Let me ask you a question. Are you able to come into the school after school when it's needed, not during school, and volunteer for like 3 to 4 months straight where it would actually benefit students? Won't be elementary or high school because there's not a way for them to get home. But there's no reason why it can't be a middle school since they have student activity buses. That's just one idea that costs 0 cents. And then I heard people talking about businesses and tax. If somebody's coming to your location and asks for a tax abatement, then one thing they can also ask for, you need to volunteer in the district with your employees. Guess what? You pick a couple schools, you make a difference. I used to be at the Powell Center and the Truancy Center, Independence High School in Marion Franklin. I had a peer-to-peer thing. A couple girls consistently truant. Consistently. I got with the principal at the time at Independence. And I got him, I said, give me your best students that are willing to work with some of these students that are truant. It gave them community service, talked with the mom, and they turned it around. Didn't cost a single cent. Why should we continue to operate programs that don't lead to success of teaching? And I'm gonna tell you what, I know quite a few of them, programs that are a disaster and people are still getting money for what? Now, with the athletic piece, I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but people need to be held accountable for situations that happen. There's a situation in South High School where they're now D1. As far as I know, that's 100% out of their control. I just saying, make people accountable. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Are there any clarifying questions for Mr. Rhodes? Thank you for taking the time to address the board this evening. Have a good night. Our final speaker, Jarrell Everson. Topic, violence as it's related to schools. Board action requested. I would like the board to be aware of the violence as it is going on in the school. Mr. Everson, good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. President Baker, Vice President Cole, Treasury, Internal Auditor Smith, and members of the board, Superintendent Dixon, good evening. To the people right behind me, good evening. I wanted to talk about conflict in its relationship to a school, like as in what does violence has a relationship? Does violence has a relationship with school? Now, I come to find out that knowledge is always within the shadow of ignorance. It will never be complete. Just like a coin, heads is knowledge, tails always must run with ignorance. We teach these to our kids, my brothers and sisters, which is inside the school system, the school society, period. This huge encouragement of self-centered activity. That's the I, me, my, should strive to be, just self-centered activity, and it keeps us away from the actual fact of what's going on. So then now, when one goes into the school, basically, and real learning is moving farther away from knowledge. Knowledge from the technical side is very much used. We need that, basically. Knowledge from me getting to my house, I need that. But when we take this knowledge and we use it against others, the whole idea of the books and religiousness, basically, was never to take no ideas above any human. Me, you, or nobody. We are taking these ideas and we put it ahead of humans, basically. So with this self-centered activity, we don't learn. This self-interest, basically, we focus on I, me. It keeps us from things like seeing the actual, inquiring. Inquiring is moving into the fact and staying with it. Now, with all this, it teaches other things. It moves us away from this self-knowledge, moves us away from things like self-knowledge, basically. This knowledge, basically, that we have, it leads us away from our self-knowledge, and it keeps us more into the ideas. So they say, like, if something will happen at school, we move into the actual fact, and then we move into an idea. The idea is never going to solve the problem. The idea is creating more problems, in fact. Say like we are fear. If I were to say, think of everything as love and fear. Everything from movement, everything you see, everybody speaking, everything. The self-interest is fear. This time factor, this comparison that we got at school, why do we compare? We never question our own thoughts. We never question our own beliefs, basically. It's the self-centered activity, basically. And it's causing a problem within the students, basically, the parents, the kids, and it's keeping us from the self-knowledge, basically. And our self-knowledge is things like pleasures, desires, sorrow, why do we go through them? Not move away from them, but to see actual. What is, basically. We move away from what is into ideas. And like I said, from the comparing, why do we compare? To see who's better than? We do that, compare grades with students and all this other stuff. We measure. And that measure is a division, is conflict. Where there's division, it must be conflict. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Everson. Are there any clarifying questions, colleagues, for this speaker? Mr. Everson, thank you very much for taking the time to address the board this evening. Have a good night. Thank you. And that is our final speaker, colleagues, for the evening. Thank you very much to everyone who took the time to provide testimony to the board tonight. We do appreciate it. Let's move on then to hear from our direct reports, and I'll call on the superintendent first. Madam Superintendent, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening.
Evening.
Last month, we began highlighting our 4 priorities, and we heard from our academic team. So tonight, we're going to bring back two people. One, we're going to hear from Alicia Gillison about our priority 4 strategic engagement. And then we're going to go back to part of priority 1, academic performance, and we're going to hear from Peggy Cleary about our career and technical education program. She wasn't available the night that the other academic team spoke. So first, we would like to have Alicia Gillison and engagement team to come up, and they're going to talk about specifically what is that engagement strategy and what they have been doing, and what are some of the outcomes that you should see throughout the school year. Okay.
Thank you, and good evening, President Baker, Vice President Cole, Treasurer B, Internal Auditor Smith, Superintendent Dr. Dixon, and members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity to share the strategic plan of our newly created Department of Engagement. We're not only going to talk about the strategic plan, but we're going to give a quick overview of what it is that we do. Dr. Dixon mentioned the academic team presented a couple of weeks ago. And so they were presenting on priority 1, which is academic performance. My focus tonight is strategic engagement, and that's the work that is ahead of us. But before we get started, I want to use some working definitions because sometimes engagement means different things to different people. So for the context of this evening, family and community engagement is a full and equitable partnership among families, educators, community partners, and business stakeholders to promote children's learning and develop in their development from pre-K through high school. Partnerships, a cooperative and collaborative relationship between people or groups who agree to share responsibility for achieving a specific goal. Let's talk about the why. The why of engagement. We know that when Dr. Dixon first came to the district, she was out in the community, she listened to our internal and external stakeholders. And the why? We have 50,000 reasons why. And those reasons are from pre-K to the 12th grade. Every one of those reasons, our children deserve a quality education. And it's our responsibility to ensure that we can provide it. Our responsibility is to get this right because their future depends on it. Now, there's an overwhelming body of research on engagement, and our team has really dug into the research of Karen Mapp and the research of Joyce Epstein. And going into this research, they talk about 3 spheres of influence when it comes to engagement for our students. And the first sphere is school engagement. And we know the most influential factor in school for a student's education is the teacher. The second sphere of influence is home. The most influential factor contributing to a student's success is the family at home. And we have a third sphere, which is talking about our community. Now, how does that mesh with school and home? Well, we know in Columbus, because I can speak to that, we are resource rich. We keep hearing that. So we talk about identifying resources and integrating those resources into school, into home. For what? To support our young people. And if you look at those 3 spheres, there's a convergence right there in the center where they all 3 come together. That is the space where we have the biggest opportunity for our young people. And when we focus on that convergence, when we focus on our children, when they're at the center, we can increase these resources and support by linking learning in our schools with education, engagement at home, and in the community. Parents want to be involved. And then we have opportunities that in many cases are missed opportunities. We have muffins with moms, donuts with dads, but we're not linking it. How about muffins and math with moms, or donuts and division with dads? That way, when they walk away, they have tips, tools, strategies that they can use at home that support exactly what's going on in the school. So when we talk about linking, that's what we're talking about. Now we talk about aligning all of those resources and aligning the resources to match our district priorities, such as literacy, numeracy, another word for numeracy is math, and graduation. This also allows us to further increase the successful overlap. And if you look at that diagram, that convergence is getting larger. And it's getting larger. One, we're linking. Two, we're aligning. And then we talk about growing. And as you see, the spheres are almost off the page, because now we're empowering our families at home, we're supporting our children at the school, and our community is vested in the success of our young people. That theory right there is the theory that led us to our mission. The Department of Engagement will link, align, and grow our district school, home, and community supports and resources to maximize student achievement. Now let's talk about our goals. And you will find a common theme. Goal 1 is to link, establish a culture across the district and within our schools where families and community stakeholders are meaningful, engaged, and welcome as partners. Well, that's a goal, but how do you accomplish that goal? What are some of the strategies that we're going to use as a team? We're developing a comprehensive strategic engagement plan that addresses all type of partners, including families, students, businesses, our faith-based communities and organizations. And one such activity is where we're partnering with our faith-based organizations, and we plan on having a literacy night at each one of our 6 regions throughout the district. And this is an opportunity where the Department of Engagement partnered with academic services to align strategies. And there was an all-call for all youth ministries that work with our young people so that we could align the vocabulary that our young people will need to show mastery, to align it so they not only get that information at school, it's supported when they're out in the community. We're also engaging in an asset mapping project that I'm really, really excited about, but I'm going to let my colleague talk about it in the interest of time. But linking to learning. Our next Engage to Empower Literacy Night will be held December 4th. That's right. And that's going to be on the west side of Columbus. And there's been an all-call for pastors and bishops on the west side to converge this night so that we can share strategies that will support our students at home and in school. Goal 2 is align. That's to implement a process to align district partnerships and district priorities. So you've heard alignment a couple of times. When Dr. Dixon created this department, there were certain expectations that she had. I mentioned that Columbus City Schools, we are rich with resources, and we are blessed to have some amazing partners. But what she charged me to do was to go back to the partners and sit down with them collaboratively to develop performance metrics and goals that were directly aligned to school improvement goals and our district goals. Once again, we are creating this collective efficacy and moving the needle. And some of those partners we've sat down with so far, we've sat down with City Year and Communities in Schools, and most recently, I Know I Can. And I just want to give you an example of what one of those performance metrics might look like. So when we think about our partners, our college access partners, I Know I Can, one of their measures that we collaboratively developed was to increase the number of seniors who had completed at least 2 college applications. And that increase had to be an increase from the previous year. So in doing so, and us working together, just this past weekend, we hosted the College Application and Scholarship Workshop. I Know I Can, in collaboration with Columbus City Schools and our counselors, to foster and to ensure that we meet that metric. And not only the College Application Workshop, but I love this picture, it's very colorful. At the very beginning of the year, we got all of our seniors together, more than 2,000 seniors, in one venue, on one day, to hear one message. And that message was, you have to reach higher. That message was, there's a class of 2020 all over the world. You have to reach higher. And in doing that, we're fostering this synergy, because in that space, on that day, our seniors were there, but they were also surrounded with people who believe in them and that they can reach higher. Goal 3 is grow. And how do we grow our resources? Well, we have resources, and if you ask me right now, President Baker, how many partners do we have, Chief Gillison? I would not be able to answer that question, sir. So, we want to grow our resources by developing the infrastructures. Developing infrastructures and a registry. So if you're going to partner with Columbus City Schools, then you're going to go in and you're going to register. And this was for our current partners and those that want to partner with us. And with that registry, it creates a repository, right? That now we know how many partners we have. And then what do you have on the flip side? After you register and you've been vetted, you'll have a card signed by our superintendent saying that you are a certified partner for Columbus City Schools. That's one way we're going to grow, because that way we will know exactly who's doing what. Not only are we going to stop there, but we're going to ensure that our building principals and our staffs in our buildings are trained on engagement. There is a lot of training that goes into being an administrator, as a former administrator, and being a leadership intern. But we didn't really get a class on engagement and parent engagement. So we are lucky enough to have an opportunity to have some professional development by a nationally renowned family engagement expert. But talk about growing. Think about Spruce Run. Spruce Run is a property that we own, and it is like an educational science center. So their curriculum is linked to learning. It's aligned. So the Department of Engagement stepped in, and we said we're going to grow this opportunity for our families. And so we have a Spruce Run Family Education Fun Day, where we provide buses to pick our families up on Saturdays and take them out to Spruce Run so they can engage in educational activities around science and writing. Another opportunity to grow was for us to actually reach out to our English language learner families And not only was this growing and reaching out to our families on our listening tours, because we are learning so much. And you talk about growing. So we know that there is a language barrier with our ELLs, but we have barriers as well. And so we are working together with our ELL communities to overcome those barriers, growing opportunities for that population of our students and our families. So there's a lot of great things going on. Link, align, and grow. But I'm going to ask my colleague, Scott Varner, to come up and talk about 3 amazing projects that we have going that are aligned to every one of our goals.
Thank you, and to the members of the board, thank you for allowing us to share more about the Department of Engagement. There are 3 big projects that we want to undertake this year. The first is our asset mapping and mobilization. As you heard Ms. Gillison say, one of the challenges that we have in this new department is that we know there are hundreds of community partners, but we really don't have the best measure of exactly how many, how are they really aligned, what resources do they bring to the table, or do we understand even the size, the impact that they're having, or the equity that they're having across our district. So with this asset mapping, we have an opportunity first to build an engagement strategy based upon knowing what we have in place. What are the assets that are there? What are the resources, the partners who are there? And to begin our planning with that. It allows us to kind of build up that culture that Ms. Gillison talked about, where we are welcoming our partners, welcoming the work that they want to do. And finally, it's about capacity building, identifying those successful partnerships and finding ways to get them to do more. You know, if there's a successful program in one area, how do we replicate that? How do we make sure that success goes all across the district? So in short, what we want to do is produce a tangible display, a map of supports and resources, those assets that are available to our students and our families. But more importantly, we want to both measure and mobilize what our community has available to best support our students and their families. So what's this asset mapping going to look like? Well, we're starting with the basics. We are currently working with folks from the Fisher College of Business at Ohio State to plan out what this asset mapping project is going to look at. First off, we need to first recognize and delineate what assets are we going to count. How do we define which ones are partners versus a vendor versus a service provider? What partnerships are we going to count? Just those that are inside the school? What about a rec center nearby or other facilities? So we're working through that process to determine, first off, what partners are we going to count? Secondly, how are we going to map and record those assets? We know we want to create that inventory, but more than just the names of the organizations, the types of organizations, we want to know specifically what services are they providing, how many students are they impacting each year, and how do we best quantify the impacts that they're having, both the qualitative impacts but also the quantitative impacts. And finally, in that mobilization, we want to identify the gaps and the overlaps. Where are services not being provided? Where are there too many services? Or where are they all falling on one day versus being spread out and reaching all of our students? And then when we have that, how do we find those new or additional resources so that we can cover those gaps? How can we create that equity? So as we've built out the process, we've determined that we're first going to begin this effort, this big undertaking, by focusing on just one region. We're going to focus on Region 1, so that gives us a map to kind of where to start. Gives us that opportunity to kind of build our cadence and make sure we know exactly what we're doing before we kind of spread this out across the other regions. It'll allow us to select the assets that we want to identify, the data that we want to collect. Then we'll begin to look at, have there been other asset mapping projects done before? You don't want to replicate the wheel. Try to identify any barriers that may come up, and then develop that plan to collect that information. So the team from Ohio State will work with us with all of those, at all of those schools to have some of their students, graduate and undergraduate students, who will be working with us to do this asset mapping. And that will all begin in the winter, so kind of right after the holiday break. That's one project. The other big, massive undertaking we want to try to do is create that comprehensive strategic engagement plan. This will be more of that traditional needs assessment that we do, that really identifying what are those major gaps district-wide in engagement. That's meeting with not only our district leaders and teams, but bringing families and community together to hear from them so that we can find out what are those challenges, what are those opportunities that are already working in school and community engagement. I think we will truly benefit from some help from an outside consultant and combine their work with some of the ongoing family engagement information that we're receiving from things like the ELL listening tour that Ms. Gillison talked about. Best of all, this work will align with the district's academic visioning efforts and long-term strategic planning process going in. So that will launch in kind of the winter and spring of next year. This current school year, but winter and spring of 2020. And finally, the last major project that we're a part of is we've been invited to be a part of the National Network of Partnership Schools. This is a collaboration stemming out of Johns Hopkins, but it's with Ohio State and the Ohio Department of Education. We will be the first urban district in Ohio to be part of this nationally recognized work on school, family, and community partnerships. It's that evidence-based model that Ms. Gillison talked about to really implement, not just implement, but sustain inclusive goal-linked engagement. And we think this will be great to come off of the asset mapping and mobilization project in Region 1 and connect those efforts to school improvement plans. And it will include professional development in this handbook of action by Dr. Joyce Epstein, who literally wrote the book on this engagement effort, and that will launch in the spring. So those are three of the big projects we hope to undertake. With that, I will turn it back over to Ms. Gillison to wrap it up.
Thank you. Thank you. And in wrapping this up, engagement is not a one-time and a one and done or a one-size-fits-all. Every one of our students are unique and belong to unique families. Engagement is ongoing every day, and it's everyone's responsibility. When we look at engagement every day, here are some of the engagements that's happening in our schools every day. We are linking engagement to learning. So let's get engaged. We've got a list of events coming up. We have a partnership convocation. It will be at 3700 South High Street on November the 12th. If you are a current partner, then please make sure you RSVP. If you are a prospective partner, please RSVP. And if you didn't get the information, dial 614-365-8868 and RSVP. We have an English language learner family listening tour coming up that same evening on November 12th. And our next Spruce Run free family fun day, where we pick up on Saturdays, is going to be November 16th. And our faith-based literacy night at Oakley Full Gospel Baptist Church will be on December the 4th. For the listening audience, please know that hashtag #CCEngage is our hashtag. And I would like to ask families to go to the Department of Engagement's webpage, because there's a survey that you can take that we would like to know. And we will glean that information, and we will use that information as we are planning our engagement activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gillison. Colleagues, are there questions for Ms. Gillison on the presentation? Mr. Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have two. First of all, thank you so much for this presentation. I really am excited about the idea of how much we're committing to family engagement, and look like we're putting ourselves in the forefront from what I've even seen nationally. So I'm excited about that. My first question is this: how will we work to improve the quality and accountability of our engagement experiences? I'll use a very specific example. Our mentorship program. You mentioned that we have some 400 children who have been aligned with some 250 mentors. Now, that's a wonderful thing, but I do know of some challenges that we have had. One specifically I've confronted is that from time to time, there might not be the kid there. Maybe it's a transiency issue, something to that effect. Maybe there needs to be better alignment of students to mentors from the standpoint of student need. So there are any number of variables that play into that. But how are we looking at improving the quality of that experience for the mentor and for the mentee? If you don't have to answer that now, I would love to get some sort of idea on that moving forward.
Absolutely. And I'll have Dr. Keisha Huntley Jenkins and the mentoring team follow up.
Awesome. Second one is, I had the opportunity this past weekend to participate in Books at the Barbershop, another exciting relationship that's 3 years old at this point. I want to make sure I didn't see that included in this piece, but I wanted to make sure that we were clear that that is going to continue to exist and that we'll continue to build on that.
Right, and I'm excited to say that it will continue to exist. And I've asked Dr. Huntley Jenkins to come up and share some more information, but I do believe you all have backgrounders that has the information for Barbershop Books. All right. Good evening.
Good evening, Doctor.
Thanks for having me here tonight. Thanks for giving us this opportunity to present about our work. Yes, Barbershop Books program is going to be here. Our partnership with the city continues. We're entering our 5th year. We started with 10 barbershops. We're now to 33. The plans are to expand to 50 next year. So we have not had the launch yet. The presentation that you attended, or that was just a press release to let the barbers know that it's still ongoing. So,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Thank you. Board Member Reyes?
Hi, Ms. Coulson.
Hello, Board Member Reyes.
So I'm just going to ask a couple questions, and after this, I'll probably ask you about 100 more. So as I look at your presentation, which I appreciate very much, when you're looking at the first thing we say, partnership convocation, will potential partners, be provided? What are the requirements about being a partner? Being very clear as to what does it take to be a partner? What will it take for you to stop being a partner? What are the current parameters or partners that we're looking for based on our strategy and what we want to do? I mean, some of us have been here for a very long time, and we get stopped left and right about, I want to do this in school and I want to do that in the school. And there are many people that get upset because their project doesn't get looked at or their project doesn't get adopted. So I think it's going to be very essential that we're very clear about our expectations, that it's not about, if we have clear requirements and here clearly communicated, I think that'll avoid some issues with some of the people that potentially want to come into the district. Will that be available?
At the convocation.
Yes, ma'am.
President Baker, to Board Member Reyes's question, absolutely. When we think about this partnership convocation, right now we have one superintendent, and we have hundreds of partners and even hundreds more of potential partners that want to meet with one superintendent. So we're having this convocation, so our superintendent will be able to share the vision, share the district priorities, so everyone hears the same message at the same time. And then we will even discuss the visioning process, but as it relates to partnerships, we're going to talk about the registry, and then we'll have partnership protocols. And those partnership protocols will not only be introduced at the partnership convocation, but we will get those out to building principals, because a lot of times a partner will go knock on the door of the building principal, right? So that everyone is on the same page. Now, I want to be totally transparent with a large district, and everyone may not come to the convocation. So it will take us, it might take us a while, but by the beginning of next year, every partner and potential partner should be registered, and everyone will be aware of our partnership protocols.
Perfect. As you discuss and look at those partnership matters. I think one of the things that's most important, which is something that I deal with in my nonprofit world, is the volunteer vetting and helping people understand that there may be a background check necessary. If you are anywhere near our children by yourself, or even in a group where there's not another supervising adult available, that may be something that is absolutely necessary so that people are not surprised. So that's what I'm talking about when it comes back to ensuring that people understand what are the requirements from a district, not because we're trying to put people out, but more protecting our children and ensuring that so I think that's important.
You're absolutely right. Thank you.
The other thing that I was interested in hearing or seeing perhaps in your presentation as you go, because I'm assuming we're gonna go around and letting other people hear this, is when we're doing these alignments, whether it's with religious organizations, barbershops, to ensure that we have culturally relevant opportunities. So when you say barbershops, there's not only black barbers in the city. There's salons that cater to other demographics within our city, as diverse as our school is. There are people out there that would love women barbers. Yes. And beauty shops would like to be included. And other religions. So when I looked at the faith-based literacy night at Oakley Full Gospel Baptist Church, on the west side, when you have 35% of the population on the west side that's Hispanic and predominantly Catholic, what are we doing with San Esteban? What are we doing with San Marguerite? What are we doing with some Bishop Reed? What are we doing with some of those other demographics out there to ensure, will they feel comfortable? Will they feel welcomed? So as we select some of these and expand them and grow, to ensure that we're looking at those entities where everyone can feel comfortable, not because it would not be a good place to go, but there are people that feel more comfortable in certain scenes. So maybe adding that to the presentation somewhere so that when you're presenting it, I can see myself in your presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
And then the last thing, I think it's all-inclusive, making sure that we find culturally relevant partners that bring assets that for our students that include not only culturally, but gender, economic, all those other things that we're dealing with our schools. So a lot of times we bring partners that represent only one demographic, one gender, one identity. So when you're looking and seeing, looking at those gaps, there are things that we already need in the district, perhaps going out and looking for those specific partners that let's not wait for the investigation of the gap. Say, these are some of the things that we're looking for, and if you have that, we're looking for you. So I think we have to do some marketing to bring some of those partners in also on the back end.
And thank you for that as well, and that's a great point. And that is something that the asset mapping project is going to illuminate. It'll illuminate our gaps and our overlaps. But if there is a partner or a potential partner that wants to partner with Columbus City Schools, please call 614-365-8868. We have 50,000 students that are depending on you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this, first of all, this is great. I'm really excited about this. Can you go back to your definition slide? It was like one of your first slides.
Uh-oh, you got a D&I person here.
You do have a D&I person. But that's actually not my question. So I do in my D&I world, we actually use the term engagement a lot. And so my question to you is, have we actually defined the word engagement and what that means? Because there are a lot of ways to consider engagement.
Absolutely.
I know we have the circles and you talk about each one of those, but in general, when we use that term, what are we actually looking at? Because, you know, in a strategic plan, engagement itself, it's kind of all over the place. Like, you can engage people across the board. And what you do and what your team does is so critical to the other three pieces of the plan, right? And so being able to not only do all this wonderful stuff you have planned, but being able to engage those partners in the other pieces. And I know that's the linkage. I know that's what you're talking about in the linkage. But it would be more helpful, I think, if we had a stronger definition around what that engagement means and maybe around how each partner or stakeholder fits in. So if I'm a parent looking at this, how do I know how I fit into engagement, right? If I'm a PTA, so you didn't talk about how PTAs fit into this. How do I holistically fit in? And how do I engage back up? So we've done a lot of engagement down, which is great, and leaving our families with tools, which is also great, right? We don't just engage to have fun. While fun is important, we're leaving people with tools. But then how are we turning that around and allowing more space for families to engage up? And I know we're doing that because you're doing it with the English, what is it?
English Language Learner Listening
How do we
Tour.
do that more? Because that's where, again, we're going to start to impact the culture and climate, right? So it's very holistic. So I'm really keyed in on looking for those holistic strategies that touch all the components and having really strong definitions. So no matter who in the community picks this up, they see exactly where they fit. And the other piece that, like Ramona kind of touched on, was about that cultural competency piece, right? Ensuring that any engagement we do does incorporate all of our families, and not just about language, right? Because we do kind of we do that a lot, but also just about culture and belief as well. And that helps promote our culture and climate. So being able to understand why some students in our district celebrate different holidays, right? And just the bigger picture and engaging in one another in a community setting. So I'm really excited. I love this stuff. This is, and I think that you are well suited for this, the way that you speak about it. But I'm looking at it very strategically to ensure that anything that we have in that plan is going to help us accomplish all of the, not just the fun, which is great, but really that alignment. So that really wasn't, I guess, a question other than can we get a really strong definition of engagement and how do we all fit? How does the regions play into this engagement strategy? And when we do the strategic plan, is it going to be a district plan or will it be more regional based?
Strategic plan would be a district plan. But theirs is an engagement plan.
That's what I mean. I'm sorry, the
Yeah,
engagement
no, it would be a
plan.
district. It would be a district-wide engagement plan.
Okay.
And then the asset mapping, we're going to start, as you stated, with Region 1 first, because we would think about how many schools, and it could be daunting. We have 109 schools, so we thought if we take a regional approach, then we are able to see what do parents in that region, their needs and their programming may be different from another region. And we wanted to make sure it was doable too, so we thought the regions would be a easier way, a more doable way to tackle this work.
But when the ultimate goal, I guess going back to, one of your last slides now, about, not one size fits all, right?
Right.
The plan is.
Absolutely.
Right, to allow the schools, the regions, the families.
Right.
To also help design what the engagement looks like to get the most return on investment.
Right.
Is that a consideration?
Yes. President Baker, to Board Member Adair, you're absolutely correct. Just like each one of our schools are very, very unique, the culture and climate, it's like that when you look at the regions that are around the city. So I like the terminology used about the holistic approach, because part of that, just for a quick example, on the survey that's on the webpage, so if you hear me, please go to the webpage. It asks questions of parents like, are you comfortable? Do you feel confident in your ability to support your student at home with their homework? Then we dig a little deeper, specifically what would help your child. And in that, we've come up with the parents who have taken the survey, math, geometry, and algebra, those type of things. But that lets us work with the teams at the schools and our curriculum department to make sure we can have activities specifically for those parents. So when you talk about holistic and you talk about culture, yes, we are on our way.
Great. And my last point or question, however you'd like to take it, again, goes to that holistic approach and who's on your engagement team. And in reality, every single one of us CC grown-ups is on your engagement team.
Absolutely.
So every person, every grown-up, Stan, needs to know how he is part of the engagement team, because he works with our constituents and our families too, right? And he's not in a school building, but his job is really important and he engages people. So making sure that everyone on all of our CCS grown-ups understands their role in what you're doing is important.
Thank you so much for the, President Baker, to Board Member Adair, thank you very much, because we are all, this is everyone's responsibility.
You're next.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for this presentation, for the entire team, mentorship, family ambassadors, the engagement. I see all of you. I have a few questions, just a few. But first, around this strategy, how do higher education, colleges and universities align with this work? How do you put them in this work?
When we will go through our asset mapping project, well, first, let me say, we do have Tanya McClanahan, and we work very closely with College and Career Readiness, with Peggy Cleary out of Academic Services. So as we're planning, for instance, the college application workshop, our counselors and Peggy were very instrumental on that. So when we go through and we do our asset mapping, we'll look at an asset is a higher education partner, right? Or a post-secondary option that our students may have, or is in one region we have more seniors to sophomores than we have in another region. So this asset mapping will really help us see. We're going to have a tangible map afterwards that really demonstrates and identifies our gaps and our overlaps. And once we have that information, we will continue to strengthen our strategic plan and our next steps.
Okay. So as you do that, and I've heard us talk about our assets and moving forward and working with universities, I also know we have, just like we're the largest district in the state, we have very large partners. But I also, in your strategy, I want to hear, when you bring it back, the diversity of those partners. I want to hear Capital University, Otterbein, DeVry, Franklin, Ohio Dominican. So the diversity of our Central Ohio academic partners as well. We have an amazing partnership with and we also have those other universities that all serve Central Ohio. And so as we talk about diversity of thought, I would also want to see how we're going to leverage, because those students can work too. I want to put them all to work, right? And have them all bring some of that work to the to this Portrait of a Graduate work, our community partners, not to mention we have 2 historically black colleges and universities, and Central State takes a pretty long break. So Central State and Wilberforce University students that we know can bring a different perspective from their educational or their public policy work. I would want to make sure we hear and we do an extensive outreach to those universities as well, quite intentional, so that they are also at the table. When you talk about representation and one part of representation is who you ask, and the other part is who responds, right? So we can invite everybody to the table, but to the public and listening audience, we need you to respond. We need more people to come. So we need more people, and we have to intentionally go to other places, right? So I know it's easy to get people in one area, but we're going to have to beat the door down on McNaughton, and we're going to have to beat the door down on Sullivan, and maybe stay at that table a little bit longer. Second question, how will you link, we're doing listening tours and engagement, how will we link our findings to our customer service metrics? How will we take what we learned and how will we use that in improving our customer service, or letting them know what we've heard and seeing that in a systemic plan? You mentioned the first part of the saying. The first part of the saying, and I'll say it, is that most people in Central Ohio, we are resource rich, but the second part is that we're system poor. So what is the system for linking what we learn to improve specifically our customer service and our our staff engagement with our communities and families?
President Baker, to Board Member Gibbs' question, and thank you for asking that question. And I'll give you an example of what we're doing, and of course, we're going to expand on that. But for instance, with our English language learners listening tour, we're gathering that information, and we have it in buckets, and we're looking at the low-hanging fruit. What is it that we can impact now? And then what is it? So we're trying to prioritize. But once we finish all of our listening tours, we will come back and we will present to our cabinet, senior leadership cabinet, which at the cabinet represented is pretty much every department, the lead of every department, and we will work from there. If it is professional development that is needed, that will be decided at the time, but our next steps go there. But all of the information that we're gathering will come to cabinet, and then if Dr. Dixon desires, if it comes before the board again, or we just establish our next steps in cabinet. But that is part of the plan.
Thank you. Next question is around our definition of partnership versus vendor. I believe that was a slide. And I know that is a definition change or something that we're exploring between definition of partnership and vendor. Two things. How will you decide, explain to us that process of how we're thinking about that designation? And how will we then communicate that to our partners? And then how will we keep them engaged?
Thank you, President Baker, to Board Member Gibbs' question. That is a definition that we're still working on, to be totally transparent, but we plan on trying to have it all fleshed out by November 12th when we have everyone in the room, so that everyone leaves out with a very, very clear understanding.
Okay. Next question. Something came up today. So we're talking about people in our partnerships. There are people who want to partner with us, and then there are very clear poverty pimps. What part of our system will eliminate those people who are coming to the table but don't have the best interests of our students at heart?
That partnership registry, the partnership protocols, because all of our partners will work with us collaboratively to develop those performance metrics. And those performance metrics, we don't develop those collaboratively in the beginning of the year, and we don't revisit them again till the end. No, I'm actually meeting quarterly with our partners to ensure, are you on trajectory to meet your goal? And if not.
And we will know that. And lastly, someone asked a question earlier, and this would be, I think, well to be repeated. This is a system we're asking people to sign up and do everything. How will we prevent the bureaucracy blockage? How will we make sure we're responding to our partners and getting back to them, and they don't feel like we're this quote-unquote big bureaucracy to become a partner or to get them to the engagement level they want to be with the district? How are we ensuring efficiency in this process?
So right now, I can tell you what we're looking at. So for instance, if there are partners out there that want to mentor, so this registry, we will be able to sort. Okay. So those people that are interested in mentor, we have a mentoring office that will kind of vet those. For those folks who are interested in tutoring, then we will partner with our academic services to kind of go through. So Board Member Adair said it, engagement, that's our work. You know, it's not hard work, but it's hard work. And it's the work that we have to do.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you, President Baker. Thank you, Ms. Gibbs.
Ms. Gibbs, Vice President, you were next, and then Mr. Ragland, and then back to Board Member Reyes.
Thank you. I just had one point of clarification I wanted to make and reassertion. Please, 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 let's make customer service a top priority, please. So I do understand the family engagement piece. There's a double-sidedness. It is how we engage, but it's also how we treat folks when they engage us. So please make that a top priority in training and development for our staff in the buildings. Because I want to say how Dr. Jenkins' shop, I think it's done over the years, a yeoman's job with a very small staff of getting a lot of folks involved and engaged, But when they get into a building, then we find a breakdown because that kid isn't there. We find a breakdown because maybe somebody is trying to take over something or execute on something that wasn't clear in the exchange. I want to make sure that this work at your level of things are complemented well on a building-for-building basis because we have value, top value, and customer service. I just wanted to reassert that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Rag- Mr. Ragland?
Thank you. The survey that you mentioned, you implored our parents to go to the website and fill
Absolutely.
it out. Could that be made social media ready so it could be dispersed on our varying social media platforms? Are you doing that already, or?
Right now, it's just on our webpage, but we will work to, if it is the will of the board and the superintendent, we could work to make that social media ready.
Okay. Yeah, that's above my pay grade, I guess. But I think that may be a good idea
Mine
to get,
too, but-
you know, to spread the message a little bit faster. My question is around the performance metrics as well. Are we looking at software that allows you and the superintendent and district leadership to essentially say per school, you know, here are the partners that are at Whetstone. Here are all, 6 partners. Here are the students that they are working with. Here are the outcomes for the students since these particular partners have been engaged with them. So James is a student at Whetstone. He's been a part of, working with the I Know I Can program, City Year program, and since he's been with both of these programs, his grades have improved, astronomically. Do we have something like that? Are we looking at doing something like that that allows you to track student success because of the partnership on a, really easier than what it has been thus far? Because you've presented this as a challenge, but it seems to me like technology would be able to help us to be able to get in there, see who our partners are holistically as a district, but then also at the school level. And it may take some retraining of some of our partners and their employees about how we track the work that we are doing on the ground. But it would be something that would give you an opportunity to have real-time knowledge about what is happening in our buildings, and it would increase some accountability for our partners as well. If we're dumping the data, on a weekly or a quarterly basis about what is happening, that may be easier. So you might want to look at, if the software doesn't exist right now, maybe, finding one of our local partners to help us in the development of something like that to make it easier for you. I hadn't heard if that was something that you were considering or not. And so I just wanted to kind of throw it out there, kind of a quasi question, I guess.
All right, and thank you very much. And we have a new Chief Information Officer of Technology, so I will make sure that I sit down with her.
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Gillison, and that actually these both touch on what Board Member Ragland and Gibbs stated. With limited resources, who out there can help us gather data or design on a pro bono basis? Ohio State, Otterbein, so forth. So I think it's important. I like the fact that you're distributing the wealth within our departments, but back to limited resources, you're a staff of?
Would the Department of Engagement please stand?
Okay. There you go. So still a lot of work, so making sure that there's some expertise out there. There are the same reasons we all go to conferences. There are experts out there that love gathering data and dissecting it and creating softwares. And I know that about 10 years ago that I was on the board, we had developed a registrar on how people could actually register with the district. So I don't know who created that. So that was established several years ago. And there was a vetting tool there as to where they were at. There was a somewhat mapping tool. So just want to throw that out there. When we talk about surveys, one of the things I've learned from my other work is how the language that we use in the surveys, ensuring that they're culturally relevant. What I mean is the way that we ask questions in the idioms that we use are not necessarily the way that are conveyed in different languages. Like we used to ask a question at my center, and it was a very long, elaborate question, and we ended up having to put that to about 8 words, because there are certain words that do not translate very well to other languages and to other demographics. So we need to, I would love the opportunity to allow our public engagement committee and subcommittee to help your team and kind of vetting that before it goes out on social media. I think that's important. And then the second piece to that is, how are we ensuring that those demographics that usually do not return surveys or are not used to responding to surveys, how are we ensuring that our school personnel are making sure that we get stuff and using our community partners to help us get that data to ensure that everybody is being heard of, because otherwise it's a half-full strategy when we end up with it.
Thank you for those suggestions, Board Member Reyes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the strategic engagement presentation? Ms. Gillison and team, thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you for fielding the questions, and we'll look forward to hearing more from you soon.
All right, and once again, thank you for the opportunity. And I did want to say, Board Member Adair mentioned engagement was everyone's responsibility. So I was hoping that when I looked back, everyone would have been standing. So we'll try that again next time. Thank you, and have a great evening.
Madam Superintendent?
So, thank you. So next we have Peggy Cleary, and Peggy is going to update us on our career and technical education program and how well our students are doing in those partnerships with those programs. Peggy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
President Baker, Vice President Kuhl, Treasurer Bavoric, Internal Auditor Smith, Board of Education, and Dr. Talisa Dixon, our superintendent. Today, I am here to talk about our new division. And our office has kind of changed. I have been known for the past 22 years for career and technical education. But tonight, I'm here to talk about the exciting changes in our office. I am career and technical education, but I also have been asked to be the champion of adult and community education, higher education, the counseling department, I Know I Can, graduation coaches, internship coordinators, VCAP, and Options for Success. You may ask, what does all of that, how does it connect? Well, we're actually redefining education and looking at our third goal of graduation. So all of those departments equal to how we are getting our students across the stage. Let's start with the counseling department. I want to begin by a shout out to Kate Webster, who has who has put together a state-of-the-art website that talks about everything about graduation. So for our Board of Education, superintendent, staff, our listening audience, our students, and our parents, please visit that website. You will find everything anyone could possibly need to know about the graduation requirement changes. And that's truly why we developed a new office. So, why did we do that? Graduating from Ohio high schools has become completely complicated. Students in the classes of 2020 to 2023 have 3 different ways to graduate. And in all honesty, the class of 2020 has 2 additional options over and above the 3 that all the other students are privy to. By having one office, we are posed to ensure that every student has a graduation pathway and a plan for future success, whether it be college, career, or the military. We have a plan. This slide right here shows the 3 different sets of graduation requirements for the cohorts of 2020 through 2023. It's important to note that we are still serving many students in our schools from cohorts 2018 and 2019 who even have different sets of graduation requirements. But we are determined that all of our students, no matter what cohort, eventually cross that stage. Tonight, we will introduce you to the new graduation requirements so that we can all see how difficult it is going to be for our parents to navigate understanding what each of their students might need to graduate. Students and family will be asked to join our informational sessions that will be held across the district, and soon we will show you on the specific nights. Let's start with the 2020 senior graduation options. There are 3 ways a graduate can actually graduate. They can get into the course exam scores, they can earn industry credentials, or a remediation-free ACT score. But for 2020, students can also have additional options if they do not fulfill one of the 3 above criteria. Let's dive into that a bit deeper. The very first graduation pathway is that you need to pass your 7 into the course exams. You have to have a minimum of 4 points in math, 4 points in English, and 6 points across science and social studies, and an additional 4 points that can be selected from any of the content area. The state calls this flexibility. The graduation option gives the students flexibility in accumulating the 18 points. A high score in one test area can balance a low score on another test. That's pathway 1. Pathway 2 involves industry credentials. In this particular pathway, you can earn a 12-point industry credential, and you need to pass the WorkKeys exam with the score of a 14. I do need to call attention, no matter what pathway that the student chooses, all students must fulfill their Columbus City Schools required requirements. So with the industry credentials, it allows you to learn a skill that Ohio employers need right now and earn a good pay to live on after graduation, or help you pay for your education or work for a company that actually pays for higher education. You leave high school with a skill so that you can live on your own and you can build on this skill if you want to. The third pathway is a remediations-free score on the ACT, SAT. This slide indicates the remediation-free scores. It's a base subscore in English language arts and math, which demonstrates that a student will not need to take remediation coursework in college. All of you, when students are in the 11th grade, you can take the ACT. We are offering it on February 24th to our juniors. Students can retake the ACT on their own during any national administration and may qualify for fee waivers. Families do have to complete the instructional fee waiver form to qualify. Our district, again, will have that ACT administered to all juniors on February 24th. The state of Ohio pays for you to take this test, so parents don't have to. Taking this test will tell you and inform our district if you are ready for college and that you should be able to take college-level courses in English and math without remediation. Look forward to upcoming ACT prep classes, as well as a wealth of online resources that can be found on that counseling website. Lucky for the class of 2020, if they are unable to fulfill option 1, option 2, or option 3, they are allowed to pick two of the following list to complete their graduation pathway. You must take all of your end of the course exams, and if you receive a score of a 1 or 2 in a math, you must retake those tests. After that, you have to meet 2 of the following options: a 2.5 grade point average, complete a capstone project, you have to work 120 additional internship credit hours, earn a 3 in a college credit plus credit at any time during your high school, earn credit for an advanced placement or an IB, earn a WorkKey score of a 3 which for each test. For this, the students only need a combination score of a 9 on the WorkKeys. You can earn an industry-approved credential that equals to a 3-point credential. So this option is a little bit less than the number 3 option, because a 3-point credential is not the 12-point that is in option 3. A 3-point credential for the listening viewers would be something like Microsoft Word. It's an industry exam that is accepted through any pathway. A 12-point credential would be something, a state-tested nursing assistant. It's a much longer course. It takes many more skills to be able to sit and take that exam. Our students can also earn one of those credits through the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal. Let's go back to those industry credential options. If you're trying to get the 12-point, we are very excited that every high school now has the ability for students to earn a 12-point credential. It can be, you take 4 different tests. It could be PowerPoint, Word, Excel, and Outlook. Each test is worth 3 points. Completing one part of the MOS certification would meet one of the options under the additional 2 pathways. However, if you're trying to reach option 3 for a 12-point credential, you would have to pass all 4 of the industry credential tests. To help students prepare for these tests, our office has bought the G-Metrix online curriculum software, so that it is a predictor test, and it'll tell you exactly where you need to do better in order to be able to achieve proficient on the exam. In addition, many of the career technical education courses at the career centers and at the local high schools have 12-point industry credentials embedded in their programs. To make life even more exciting, the class of 2020 are also able to use the permanent graduation requirements. The next few pages outline the permanent graduation that will be available to the class of 2023 and beyond. However, any students before them can use those permanent requirements. The next few slides go over more specific information about these requirements. And we included those for your reference. As more information comes out, especially with the seals, we will come back and explain that. But just so you can see, they have the Ohio State test, and integrated math and English 2. You also have end of the course exams in biology, American government, and American history. But those scores would be used for seals. You have options other than passing those tests, which include college credit plus, career experience, and technical skill. In that, they talk about web exams and career technical pathways, industry credentials, being part of pre-apprenticeship programs, or being accepted into an apprenticeship program. They also talk about work-based learning and military readiness. Competency, if the students do not earn those end of the course in math and English, they need to demonstrate competencies in other ways that we talked about. And then we have the SEALs. The SEALs, there are state-defined SEALs and there's locally defined SEALs. As you can see, as part of those permanent graduation requirements, CCS is way ahead of the game. We've already developed our locally defined SEALs and have presented them to the Ohio 8. The 3 SEALs are in community service, fine and performing arts, and student engagement. Even the state was pleased that Columbus City was front and center to have our SEALs done first. You will learn more about the SEALs in the upcoming board meetings when they are introduced to you. So what is the plan? Here's the plan. We are having tentative regional graduation requirement meetings for all parents, all throughout the month of December. Here is a tentative assignment. December 4th is Northland. December 5th is West High School. 10th is Walnut Ridge High School. I'm sorry about that. December 11th, we have an open house at both career centers with a bus going back from each at both Columbus Downtown High School and Fort Hays Career Center. On December 12th, we'll be at East High School. December 16th, Centennial High School. But round 2, we're going to do the same thing again in February. Somebody might ask, why February? Well, it's mid-second week in February where our students get their end of the course exam scores back. Sometimes they don't believe they're not going to be successful until they get those scores. So we are going back out and working with Alicia Gillison's Department of Engagement to go out to make sure that not only the parents, the students, the community understand how we can make our students successful, especially for the class of 2020, because there's a way to pass the graduation. We can get across that stage. We also have plans for College Credit Plus district meetings. Centennial is November 21st, January 9th is Eastmoor Academy, and January 22nd is Otterbein University. Students in grades 6 through 11 who come and are considering College Credit Plus courses next year need to attend and fill out their letter of intent by April 1st. Next, the most important, we have set Graduation Saturday School. So in our Graduation Saturday Schools for students that need to capture an industry credential, if they don't have enough internship hours, or they still haven't completed their VCAP, they can come to Fort Hays Career Center where we will hold industry credentials in MOS, in forklift, we call it the construction trio, where students can come and get a forklift, scissor lift, and CPR certification. ServSafe, which is a food service certification. And not only will they complete it, they don't have to come to all 6. It usually takes 3 Saturdays to earn the credentials, but we will have employers on site and hiring for jobs once they earn their industry credentials. This also gives our students extra time to complete what is needed in VCAP and in their, we did a lot of community service on those 6 Saturdays. Our higher ed department plans, I was glad that somebody asked about our community partners, our higher education partners. Our partner colleges include Ashland, Capital, COTC, Columbus School of Art and Design, Columbus State Community College, Franklin, Kenyon, Ohio Dominican, my alma mater, Otterbein, and the Ohio State University. Our data from our College Credit Plus In 2015-16, we started with 434 students, and last year, we nearly doubled that when we had 859 students complete 2,589 courses. Another big push is concentrating on getting our teachers being able to teach College Credit Plus courses right in our schools. With the change in graduation requirements, College Credit Plus offerings will become even more important. Please make sure you get to one of the upcoming meetings that we listed before. Another shout out is November's Career and Technical Month. Fort Hays and Columbus Downtown have visitors every day in November. It's time for the 10th graders to come and see what's happening in the Career Centers. Remember that the Career Center programs are going to be embedded with 12-point credentials that will help for those graduation requirements. Next year, we won't have the 2 extra 3-point credentials or the extra just 1 class of College Credit Plus. So the Career Center is a very viable option, but not only the Career Centers, we know that students sometimes don't want to leave their school, so we're redefining education and career technical education in every high school. We're developing pathways for every single high school. We are creating course equity in every single region in Columbus City Schools. We're expanding course offerings in high schools, digital, blended, and open campus. We're continuing to do quality reviews on our career technical education programs and making sure that they are viable and they lead to high-paying jobs. We are transitioning to articulated credit into transcripted credit. We're increasing teachers that hold credentials. We're advocating for semester courses so that students can earn credits more efficiently. And don't forget to visit the brand new developed counseling website. There's more information on there, especially for the listening public, to get those answers. We're increasing the credentialing opportunities of off-track seniors. We're hiring graduation coaches for those particular students that need the extra help. We are holding strategic parent community meetings, implementing our district SEALs, ongoing collaboration with college partners to promote college pathways. We're redesigning summer school to include industry credentials and middle school career exploration. We're working with accountability on graduation dashboard and to have graduation planners on student and parent portals. And we are doing intensive professional development to make sure that our students are getting the best possible education. So I know you thought you were going to hear about career and technical education, but that's one piece of graduation. We have a brand new office that is really trying to work together to make sure that people understand that career technical education doesn't only mean technical skill and careers, it means college. Our students are graduating at a 14% higher average in Columbus City Schools if they were attached to a career and education program. So please support our new office. And I would like anyone in our office to please stand up. There are some here. We have Tanya McClanahan with higher education, Kate Webster, Jimmy, and Bill Mitchell with our counseling. And last but not least, our adult and community education wanted to be part of this, and they have now a scholarship for a graduating senior to go to our College of, or School of Practical Nursing right here in Columbus City Schools. Free tuition. It's a one-year program where they, after 1 year, they can sit for their licensed practical exam. So working together, I Know I Can, counseling, adult ed, career tech, graduation coaches, internship coordinators, all working for a common goal of graduating every single one of our students. Thank you for your time.
Board Member Gibbs.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for that presentation, Peggy. I'm going to ask the question I think that everyone is thinking, and we're all here, we're very smart, but how do you simplify that for parents? How do you boil that down so that average parent
can understand it?
Can understand it. What are we doing to get that information condensed so that me, parent of a teenager, right, can use that? Me, parent of a sophomore, not just a senior, but how can a sophomore parent, freshman parent, get that information that's accessible?
So, Board President Baker to Board Member Gibbs, great question, and I'm thrilled that you asked that question. That was the first and foremost reason for that counseling website, so that you can go in. It is divided into cohorts. So if you know that you have a sophomore, you can go right on and it will take you right to the link for that. But at our community meetings, we are going to have people that will specifically talk to each cohort so that they can understand. This is such a complex graduation. Even people that are coming in from Dr. Ocasios, coming from a different town, my new boss, and we sat down and looked at it. It is very complicated. I have to sit and really think it out. So we're trying to make the message simple, but the best thing right now that I can say is going and doing their information search. Go to that website. We've tried to make it as easy as possible. We've outlined, defined, and there's answers right there.
So let me also let me ask this, because we operate with knowledge of one part of our district, but our strategies are on a different side. If we have families who can't keep the lights on, the internet isn't on, how are we getting this information to parents that aren't going to the website or don't have access to?
Another great question. So we actually have meetings, one-on-one meetings, at least once a year with the students to go over that graduation planner and sit with the student and identify. We've had conversation with Alicia and her department where they want to have graduation planners that are magnets that will go on to the refrigerator. We're actually looking to see if that could be done for each cohort so that it's something that somebody can see. Another thing is we have this parent portal, and I know a lot of our parents might not have computers, but we are victims of that cell phone, right? So all of our stuff that we're trying not only to have it on a computer, but that can go right to the student and parent portal so that there'll be information to be able to say, this is where your child's at and this is what they still need to be proficient and to be able to graduate. So we have a group of people that we've brought together to kind of try to answer some of those questions. And that's why we wanted to bring it to you tonight, so that you all could wrap your brains around this complexity of what our graduating seniors are going to be up against, and every student that is actually in high school and even middle school.
Okay. You got a tag team partner, you trying to tag in?
I wanted to tag in. President Baker, just a quick tag in. We have an event coming up called Amp It Up, and it is with Impact for Community Action, where families will actually come to West High School to sign up for HEAP. And during that time, we're going to have sessions on graduation, graduation requirements. So while we have the parents coming in to actually get on the computers in the event they don't have computers and internet at home, then working with Peggy and her team, we'll make sure that they get that information. Once we get them in the building, they're ours. So we can make sure they get that.
Let me ask a question too. So a lot of this is we're hosting. Are we providing transportation for families to come to these events? Not the ones at school, but the ones on a Saturday? If we know transportation is a barrier for some of our families, how are they going to get to us? The kids can stay after school, but how are we, for the Saturday academies, have we thought about how do we get families there?
So for the Saturday, and that's great, another option for the parents to be able to come on Saturday.
Or the
And
students.
For students, it is what it was for last year. But interestingly enough, the parents would come. And we actually had parents ask if they could stay and get the credentials. And we actually provided that for a couple of them because they stayed, right? But the students were all given, if they needed a bus pass, they were each provided a COTA bus pass so that they got there, so that we tried to take away the barrier of transportation. And we're just not sure how many people that is going to be. If the need is for buses to be regionally, to bring them downtown, we will look into that as well.
Okay, let me ask one more question. Just around, and I know we own the real estate, right? So it's easy for us to host in our own house. But we also know from the customer service data that we have, people have some challenges coming to our schools. So have you considered the rec centers hosting it. I hear Impact, but St. Stephen's, Urban League, other places that they are familiar with and closer to their communities. Can we add that as in the mix?
So, President Baker, to Board Member Gibbs, and I saw it in my notes and it was written, and the counselors actually came up with the idea of exactly that. And that's the beauty of having all of us under one umbrella. And one thought was the libraries, community centers, and even have the information ready for not only the churches, but also the Catholic churches too. So and having it in written form, very easy, and then a link to where they can go and get additional information. So that is something that was actually on my report, and due to time, I kind of skipped over that. So I'm glad that you brought that back up.
And I might have asked this, but I want to make sure I hear it again. A lot of our work is around, because we want them to come and parents need to do this, and we have highly engaged parents. What is your strategy for low engaged parents? With the kids that are basically directing this on their own. What is our strategy for the parent that's not coming to the meeting? They're not going to come to the Saturday credential. They're going to say, they're going to ask the kid, are they okay? The kid's going to say okay, and that's it. What is our trigger to help the kids that may not have parental support or the parental?
So again, another great question, President Baker to Vice President, Board Member Gibbs. Each school has a senior team that looks at each and every senior. We have information whether they have their internship hours, if they have all of their classes scheduled, what they have at deficient, if they're in VCAP, what they need. And we look at that data and make sure, and then it's all hands-on. Those teams are the principals, the vice principals, your senior counselors, your I Know I Can representatives, because they do, they help with that as well. We have our internship coordinators, our graduation coaches. And for those specific kids that we are most worried about that don't have that wraparound support is where the graduation coaches come in, and we assign them to the students that we know we haven't seen or had contact with those parents, regardless of how many times that they had tried. And the other thing that Ms. Jimmy just pointed out to me too, in the career advising, our counselors are going in at the middle school level. They leave middle school with their graduation planner in their hands, so they understand, and looking at middle school, what courses that they took in middle school count to high school graduation requirements, so it's in their hand in triplicate so that they can take it with them and have that. And then once they're in 9th grade, there's at least one-on-one with each student to go over those same requirements each year. It's never enough, but that's what we have in place right now.
Because you have a senior team, but where is that freshman, sophomore team? Or do we just throw all of this at senior year?
No.
Like, where is that sophomore benchmark and where is that junior benchmark? Where do the counselors, what triggers the flag for the counselors to start freshman, sophomore, junior? Because senior year is late.
President Baker to Board Member Gibbs, all cohorts have that same wraparound services, but I thought you were specifically asking for those senior students to make sure that they were graduation ready. But there are teams for 9th grade, and what they have done in a lot of schools is it's kind of like the wraparound. So 1st grade teacher goes to 2nd grade. Now the counselors are divided where they're following their students in some schools. Some of the schools are doing A to D, so they have the same counselor throughout their entire 4 years. So then they have that time to create those relationships. But then each, especially at the high school, you have a 9th grade administrator, 10th grade administrator. You have the counselor, same internship coordinator. So they do travel. There's a more intensive look to make sure that nothing is dropped at that senior year so that they all can make it over to that graduation stage.
Thank you for that. I'm going to just offer to you as I yield my time, is that with our student mobility, that's great until you move to your 2nd or 3rd school, right? So your middle school jacket could have 3 schools in it, and your high school jacket could have two schools in it. So if you're A to Z in this school and you're a different way, I would just offer that you look at it from a student mobility and transition standpoint, so that if a student doesn't have a straight path up and down, how do we have those teams that catch them? The second one is that I know we do business the way it works for us. But for families that are busy on Saturdays, Seventh-day Adventists, Jewish families, Saturdays don't work. And so Sundays might have to end up in our rotation. I know they might not happen, but Sundays is Saturday for a big part of our community, and it's less crowded for our highly engaged students, right? For their leadership, their Saturday sports. So to consider some type of alternate day programming that will catch another set of students. And then finally, making sure this is on the web, but maybe using our technology, to Board Member Ragland's point, to have put this in a webinar, put this in a one-point piece, make sure it goes out to not just, you need a whole YouTube channel just on graduation, and use all of our tools. We have a team, this airs on TV, we're on the radio. We can go to faith-based, you can go to the barbershops, but for as complex as this is, you're gonna need to use every outlet as a year-long strategy. So just doing it in February, I don't think works, and crashing the schedule senior year, I don't think produces the best college and career-ready students, because they have crammed, but we don't know if they've mastered. And we know it's mastery by a test, but what we heard today about soft skills and making sure they have time to get it. We're gonna get everybody across, so I applaud everybody. And if you think we're not trying to help your kid graduate, all them 15 slides right there is 9 million ways for them to graduate. But we can't lose them in 9th grade, and we know we lose about 500 a year. And so how do we get them in, keep them in, and keep this information as simple as possible, but in every way possible? So thank you for your work.
Thank you, Board Member Gibbs. Mr. Vice President? All right, any other questions or comments on the presentation? Thank you very much, Peggy and Cleary Potts. Thank you very much, and your entire team. Madam Superintendent?
Yeah, thank you.
We have, just think about, we started school in, August, and it's now November, and the amount of work that we are doing. So thank you for, we know that these presentations on the first meeting of the month are a little longer, but I think it's important that we talk about the things that we're doing in the district. And thanks to the team, as Peggy pointed out, that whole department has been restructured because of the amount of work that they're doing now. And how important, as you all recognize, that we make sure that our students are career and college ready, and how we need to start even earlier. So I applaud their efforts, and also that engagement strategy. So all of this work that we're doing, we're very intentional about this. When you said to me, what are those priorities? You know, we've talked about 3 of them. We're going to come back next month and talk about that priority 3, the talent and development, and talk some more too about culture and climate and what we're doing to help students with the social emotional learning. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the superintendent, colleagues? Seeing none, let's move on to hear from our internal auditor. Madam Internal Auditor, have you a report for the board this evening? Thank you.
All right, we'll get it. Okay, but there's nothing to look at right now for this part, just listen. Okay, President Baker, Vice President Coe, members of the Board of Education. At the October 24th, 2019 Audit and Accountability meeting, the committee voted to release 4 reports. The first report was on investment management. That report resulted in 9 recommendations. 2 of the recommendations were rated as high and related to governance issues. The other 7 recommendations were rated as moderate risk and involved also governance issues, risk and compliance. We have received corrective action plans for all of the recommendations, and at a later date, we will be doing a follow-up to report back to the board as far as the effectiveness of the corrective action plans. The second report was a report on grants management that resulted in 3 recommendations, one of which was rated as high, and the two others were rated as, two recommendations were rated, one is moderate and one is low risk. And once again, we will do a follow-up, come back to the board and report on the effectiveness of the corrective action plan. The other two reports were follow-up reports. One was on a textbook accountability, and the original report was released in June of 2017. Management is to be commended for the implementation of inventory software that has enabled the warehouse supervisor to know what unused textbooks are available at each school. So as requests are received, rather than purchase additional books, the supervisor knows exactly where the books can be found within the district. He deploys people to go and pick the books up from school A and deliver them to school B, saving us a nice amount of money. The final report that was released was the follow-up on the district use of CODA bus passes. The original report was released in April of 2018. The original report contained 22 corrective action plans, and this follow-up noted that 16 of them had been successfully implemented. Once again, at a later date, we will go back in and do an additional follow-up to see where we stand on the open items, and hopefully we'll be able to report to the board that all issues have been remediated and be able to close out those reports. The reports have been forwarded to the board and are on the district website for review. The next item, which now we'll pay attention to the slides, is the OIA dashboard report. Okay, this report was presented at the Audit and Accountability meeting of October 24th. So the first slide is a high-level review of where we stand with the 17 engagements planned for FY 2020. So basically, you will see that 6 are in process, 1 is completed and the report has been issued, and then 10 are still scheduled with no anticipated delays. 10 might sound like a lot, but we are just now into our first quarter, so I don't anticipate any issues with completing our work plan. The next slide gives you more specific information if you just want to kind of see, where do we stand with the specific engagement name and the specific engagement status. So if you're interested in where we stand on, let's just say, the revenue and accounts receivable audit, you can see we are in the process of doing field work. And every engagement gives you that type of detail. That's page 2. Next are the status of projects that we have going on in the department. The first item is that we are engaging a new vendor for our hotline. We will have the same services that we currently have, but for a significantly lower cost, basically 1/3 of the cost. We are working on a communication strategy. All staff will be aware of what the website is, what the vendor number is. We will be having flyers going out into schools, and we'll also be delivering some schools, just because we don't get out to the schools that often, so it'll be kind of a nice touch to go out, explain what's going on, and answer any questions while we're out there on site. The final slide is basically our staffing. We have no changes from the last time you saw this slide. We have no changes as far as our staff. We have no changes as far as our budget. This slide right here is an overview of the fraud, waste, and abuse reporting system for FY 2019. You can see that we had a total of 37 reports. We had 21 people who utilized the website. 5 people actually called into the hotline. 5 people actually called into the OIA department. we received 5 letters or emails, and we actually had 1 walk-in. The next part shows the disposition of those 37 reports. On the other side, you can see as far as most of the reports were anonymous, 25 were anonymous, 12 individuals did identify who they were. You can see over the years, we've had a high of 58 reports in 2015, a low of 25 reports in 2014. And as I said earlier, we had 37 reports come in this year. You also can see the type of issues that came into the department. You can also see how long the average reports were open in our department. And then because we work so heavily with employee relations, we also show how long issues are open if we refer them to employee relations and how long it takes them to wrap up and report back to us what the outcome was. So before I move on, because that's the last slide on this, this here fraud, waste, and abuse reporting system, are there any questions?
No, please carry on. Thank you.
Okay. The final thing was, at our meeting, it was Dr. Saunders' last ANA meeting, so we recognized him with a plaque. The first one is Dr. Saunders with the Office of Internal Audit. The next one is me giving Dr. Saunders his plaque of appreciation. And the final slide is the members of the Audit and Accountability Committee that were in attendance. President Baker, that completes my report.
Thank you very much, Madam Internal Auditor. Any questions, colleagues? Yes, and on behalf of the entire board, I'd like to extend our gratitude to Dr. Saunders, who I believe served 7 years on the committee, if I'm not mistaken. All right. Yes, definitely. All right, so if there are no questions, thank you very much for your report, Madam Internal Auditor. Let's move on then to our treasurer. Mr. Treasurer? Good evening. The floor is yours.
I have no report, but thank you anyway.
Oh, you're giving it right back then?
I'm giving it right back to you,
Thank you very much. All right, let's move on then to board development. One item remaining on board development, and that is the trolley barn presentation. And so I know the trolley barn representatives have been very patient, probably didn't expect to sit through the entire meeting and didn't have any idea how long it would be, but tonight we do have a presentation on a proposal to renovate and transform a historic site on the near east side of our city. As you know, we already had 2 speakers speak to it. Here to present are Mr. Michael Coleman from Ice Miller, come on up, and Mr. Brad DeHaze and Jeff Barr from Connect Real Estate. Come on up to the podium, gentlemen. The floor is yours, and thank you for agreeing to keep your presentation to 10 minutes.
Yes, sir. 10 minutes.
Yes, sir.
And
that means you get 5.
Yeah, okay. We'll just add 30 seconds back on.
Done.
Mr. President, members of the board, Madam Superintendent, administrators, it is my pleasure to be here this evening. You have a tough job as school board members, and I appreciate you and the good work you do for our district, so thank you. I represent Brad DeHaze and Jeff Bauer, who are behind me, and well, at least Brad is. And we are here to talk about the Trolley Barn project on the Near East Side of Columbus. Let me put this in context quickly. And where's the clicker? All right, let me have that. Yeah, yeah. Is this the? Yeah. Okay. Let me put this all in context. To my knowledge, this is the most significant private investment in a commercial endeavor on the Near East Side of Columbus in generations in our city. This is a neighborhood-inspired project. That's why you saw members of the neighborhood come up here and say, we need this done, we need this trolley bar, we need fresh food. We have State Representative Erica Crawley, who is also here today, to express her support as well, along with Kathleen Bailey, residents, Larry Price, and many others. So today I want to talk to you where it is on Oak Street near East High School. I want to talk to you about the past, the present, and the future. The past, this trolley barn has significant historical aspects to the entire city and the region. In fact, in the late 1800s, it was a site for horse and carriage transit. Then in the 1900s, it was an electric trolley barn transit provider. It went all the way to Zanesville, back in the day when there was, in fact, trolleys in the city of Columbus. Can you imagine that? We once had trolleys throughout our city all the way to Zanesville. Then it closed. Trolleys went away. So the last 60 years at this site, it was reduced to a brownfield, environmentally hazardous site, and been a problem for this neighborhood for a long time. So today, that was the past. Today, it's a site that is blighted. Residents are tired of it. It's a food desert, environmental hazards. Larry Price told you about just the crime he saw coming out of that site. He told me about the time, and you tell me if I'm right, Larry, when he saw a stop sign right on the corner with bullet holes in the stop sign, right in this neighborhood. It's been a neglected neighborhood landmark for decades, negatively impacting the property values of the residents, basically uniquely undevelopable because of the environmental hazards, all the issues related to restoring an historic building. And finally, and very importantly to you, produces no tax revenue for this district and has no benefit to the children and families of the city of Columbus and this district. This is the site today. That's what it looks like. Horrible, disgusting, and should not be allowed in any neighborhood, much less the Near East Side. So this is a great neighborhood. It really is. Great people live in this neighborhood. You know many of them anyway already. You know how wonderful the folks that live here are. But in this neighborhood, it has a higher rate of health disparity and economic disparity than the city of Columbus, anywhere else, the state of Ohio, and the United States of America in this very neighborhood. So let me talk about the future. The future is to transform this site from a drag on the neighborhood to an asset of the neighborhood, bringing back this important historical landmark, elimination of a food desert, providing healthy foods to the families of this neighborhood and to the children that go to Columbus Public Schools. Revitalize a blight in the community, fulfilling an entire destiny of a neighborhood that talked about for a long time, we need fresh food in our neighborhood. And it also transforms into a community asset. And importantly, it generates revenue as a result of this development to Columbus City Schools. Finally, it advances the mission of CCS. And I heard part of that mission today about overlapping spheres of influence. One sphere being the schools, the second sphere being homes, and the third sphere being the community. And there's an overlapping connectivity, and I think the word was used, convergence. Brilliant presentation. That's what this turns out to be. Now here's the development, this historic Trolley Brown development. Fresh food market, office space, restaurant space, and parking. It'll have 19 fresh food stalls, one stall to be dedicated to CCS. A business incubator, much of it is a business incubator for minority business and startup business that want to provide fresh food. Public space, a farmer's market, high-speed Wi-Fi laptop stations, and healthy cooking classes. This is what it looks like inside. That's how it plans to be looked. You see the kiosks, you see the stalls, and this is fresh food in a food desert in that community. Now, these are the school benefits from this effort. As a result of this development, we anticipate that over a period of 30 years, this will generate $3.9 million in new property taxes to the school district. We'll dedicate one market stall to the school district at a value of $200,000, $300,000. We'll dedicate space for coolers to the school district. We'll build out a 100 gigabyte per second high-speed internet capacity, which is the next generation of internet capacity to East High School and to the site as well. 2 mobile laptop stations and space, the public space that we'll have is rentable, and they will rent it, but not to the district, at no cost to the district. And the estimate is that that is about $2,000 per event, and I encourage the district to have meetings at this site in this neighborhood over time. Other community benefits, broader community benefits are, of course, we talked about the incubation space to minority businesses, nutritious food and affordable food options in a food desert, public meeting space, healthy cooking classes. The biggest one is to eliminate this community blight that people are tired of. They want to see this blight turn into something good for them. Preservation of historic district and historic area, the high speed, and the food choice. Now here's how it works. The DRD is a state creature. It's state requirements developed by state law. There are no DRDs in the city of Columbus. It's hard to get there, hard to qualify for a DRD. So it's never been used in the city. It's been used in other parts of the state infrequently. So the idea here is that the developer, Brad DeHaze, is going to pay 100% of the tax and the improvements on that site that are made by the developer. The developer is paying 100% of the tax. Without those improvements, there's no revenue. With the improvements, there is increased revenue, and the developer pays 100% of the taxes. The idea is also to share the revenue, because food markets are tough to survive in America. That's why you don't see too many of them. There's one in Columbus. It's called North Market. Really one of the best markets in our country is right here in the Short North area. But it too has been subsidized by the city, gets parking lot revenues. The capital, the roof and all the other things that require overtime are subsidized by the city. And so it's tough for these to survive. So we projected it, and the idea here is that 70% of the improved value of the tax is reinvested back into the food market over a period of 30 years. And 30% of the value goes directly to the district to do the things you need to do to improve education in Columbus. This is what it looks like. Nearly $4 million. The green is the nearly $4 million of new revenue to the district. This is revenue that you would not receive but for this food market. About $8.8 million being reinvested over 30 years into the food market. If you didn't do anything, the district gets $1 million over a 30-year period. That's not very much. So here's how it works. The developer is not deciding how these revenues are used. It's a 5-member committee established by the City of Columbus by state law to determine the use of those revenues to go back into the development. There's the three big buckets of which the revenues can be used for. First is to maintain the historic market and sustain its operations. Second is to support the businesses in the food market, the incubators, the small businesses, the minority businesses, which there will be many, that will need the support, that will have no other option but to look to these revenues to survive in this neighborhood. And then number three, financing of public infrastructure to support the market. Those are the big buckets. So the 5-member committee, again, established by the city, city rep, a county rep, that's 2, community rep, that's 3, small business rep, that's 4. There's 5. Finally, members of the board, this community supports this endeavor. They're saying now, they came here tonight, they say it's about time. After generations of the blight and neglect, the community has come together and said, what about us? Endorsed by the NEAC Commission unanimously. You heard the Kathleen Bailey, the longtime chairperson of that great commission. Unanimous, I might add. Endorsed by the Franklin Park Civic Association. And there was a ballot initiative in this neighborhood that for years they had, they wanted to make sure that no liquor, no wine, nothing was ever sold in this neighborhood. They voted it to pass by 80% of the vote because they knew there was going to be a restaurant on the site where they could have controlled beer and wine and liquor. 80%. And the residents have raised their hand. Think about our neighborhood. Here's an opportunity to converge concentric circles. State Representative Erica Crawley is here, if you could stand again. She wanted to make sure we pointed this out, supports this for her area as well. It is my pleasure to present this to you. We are open to questions which you may have. Thank you. Was that 10 minutes?
That was
Close?
Not terrible.
Okay.
I've seen you talk a lot longer. Colleagues, as you know, we're not voting on this tonight. We're hearing the presentation. I will schedule it for a vote at our subsequent meeting on the 19th. Are there questions, colleagues, tonight on the presentation? And if you don't have them ready, I know that Mayor Coleman and Mr. DeHaze made themselves available to answer your questions anytime. Are there questions you want to ask tonight?
I
If
might
not,
suggest one thing, this committee. We now have designated 4 out of 5 in terms of the kinds of people that could be on it.
so it's already been suggested to the team that 5th seat be representative of the school district.
Yes.
And specifically a member of the school board.
First of all, we think that's a great idea. We support that idea. And whoever thought about that idea, you're to be commended for looking out after the district. Accountability is important because that committee is important. That we do what we say we're going to do. And so that has to be included in the legislation or the agreement that the city prepares. I've talked to the city. They are in agreement. You tell them who you want on there, and they'll put it in the ordinance and all that, so to make sure that that commitment is lived up to.
Thank you very much. Board Member Gibbs, a question or comment?
I want to make a comment, and thank you so much for bringing this and explaining it to everybody. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the district investment in the Near East Side. And when we did our capital improvement program, we have new and renovated buildings in this entire area. So we have a brand-new Champion. We have a new Trevitt. We have a new Beatty. We have a new East.
East High School.
East High School. Those represent significant non-moving investments in the Near East Side. But I remember Singletary Plaza Mart, and I remember Carl Brown's IGA, and I remember Stewart's Market, none of which are what they were. And living in a community, the Kroger's at Northern Lights is gone, right? And so when you pass Woodland Avenue, the Sableye, I'm not endorsing this program. I do want to say for the viewing and listening audience though, I mean, just as a understanding this, when you pass Woodland where East Linden is, there isn't a grocery store until you hit Bexley. There is no real grocery store. And so my question to you, when you talk about a fresh market, what type of food will they have access to? Because we also know in this community, they have challenges of transportation and barriers. And I'm not getting on a Coda bus with 15 bags of groceries and my ice cream's gonna melt. Like, I'm not gonna do that. That's a challenge, as well as the proximity to this mixed community. So what will it provide the residents?
It's not French fries. It's not potato chips. It's not M&Ms. It's fresh food. It's apples and oranges and corn and tomatoes and lettuce. It is entrepreneurs who are experimenting with the food options they'll provide to the neighborhood. These are folks that can't have, they don't have the ability to establish a business at an expensive shopping mall. They want to start small, and this is where you start. And one day, one of these businesses, you know, you all have had Jenny's, right?
Yes.
Jenny's first outlet was a long time ago at a place called North Market. That business grew over time into what it is today. That might happen here, who knows? But it is fresh food, food that people cannot get anywhere else in the Near East Side.
In addition to that amazing conglomerate, which seems like it's going to emulate North Market, will there be places where our families can use their SNAP card, their WIC-approved items? Will it be mixed use where our community residents, and that's their currency, be able to come and purchase?
We want the neighborhood, the folks in the Near East Side to use this.
Okay.
We want them to be there. And whatever cards or SNAP cards or whatever, they'll be able to use it right here at this site.
Okay.
It'll be accessible, available, and an opportunity for better foods to take care of the health of the residents, the families, the children, thus the students that go to CCS. And you might even potentially even see improvement in student scores and achievement because they have a better diet options that they'll have in their own homes.
I want to put a plug in for our construction trades. And if you're looking for anybody to help work on the building, consider some of our students, some of our apprenticeships to make sure they have an opportunity from not just construction, but we have students that are studying design, that are studying graphic design, painting, floral, all of those things. So if you're looking for anyone to help work.
Member Gibbs, we want to be part of this engagement effort that was discussed earlier today. The number one engager right here. He's raising his hand right now.
Thank you very much. That
I just
concludes my
volunteered them.
Thank you.
So we'll see, oh, Board Member Adair, you have one?
Thank you for presenting today, and I think certainly anything that can be done to support this neighborhood is very important. I think one of the things that I've heard a lot, though, and you mentioned it in your presentation, is that this type of market is difficult. And you know, you liken it to North Market and the subsidies that have gone on there. What happens if this doesn't work? What happens in that case if we get in to year 9 and it doesn't work?
If this becomes a failure, it will become a failure because it's no longer a food market. If the DRD lasts only as long as it's a food market during the 30 years. Any point that it does not, that it changes a use to something else, the DRD goes away. There's no support for this. It has to remain a food market during that period of time. And that's in the legislation as well, or will be in the legislation.
So then if it stops becoming a market and the DRD goes away and a new thing comes in, then we would get the regular taxes that would be
Whatever the new thing is.
whatever on that new thing.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and then one thing that kind of along with Board Member Gibbs' question, you know, again, liking it to the North Market. North Market is not, it's kind of expensive. And so if we want our community in there, is there thought to working on with those vendors? And of course, we want them to be successful, right? And they need to charge what they need to charge. But how do we ensure that, you know, our neighbors who live right there,
Yeah.
it's accessible to them at a cost?
That's
based
a
on
very good question, and, you know, this is an unfair comparison to North Market. North Market has years and years of development, been there for, gosh, forever, and it's very successful. So there's really an unfair comparison. And so our objective is, I use the words, it needs to be accessible, available, and appropriate for those residents that live in the area. Now, if the prices are too high, it's not going to be successful. And the truth of the matter, part of the support helps keep all that in check, because it helps out with the tenants, the minority businesses. You know, the costs are always an issue, and it helps drive those costs down. So that's a very good question, and if the prices aren't right, it will fail. And there's no point in doing this. It has to be at prices that make sense for the neighborhood that it's located in.
And my last question is just to be 100% clear that the developer or the owner of this property does pay 100% of taxes.
Yes, ma'am.
All the time.
100% of the taxes will be paid by this developer.
Thank you. Board Member Ragland?
Certainly. Could you talk a bit more about the housing component that's associated with this project?
There's, was it 200 units? 102? 102 units right next door, of which you'll be developing, and there'll be a 20% set aside for affordable housing units. It is tax abated. But the idea was to make the housing such that it's not expensive housing. It's a housing for teachers, for police officers, for those who want to live in the neighborhood at an affordable price. So there will be housing, and just east of there will be housing as well, right? You can talk more about the housing. He knows more about that.
So
On the housing that's going across the street, we're parking it all on site. So we got 102 apartments, and we're able to park all of them underneath. On the east side of the property, I worked with Ohio Capital Corporation for Housing. They are currently going to do a renovation of the affordable housing next door. I worked with Hal Keller and his team. They're actually a financing partner on this project on the Trolley District Market. So they're one of the groups that helped make this come to fruition. And one of the key components to it is their mission is affordable housing. So they own the apartment complex that's on the west side currently, and they bought the one that's on the east side, and they have an application at the Ohio Housing Finance Agency to do a renovation to maintain it as affordable housing. So, what we're doing across the street, it is abated, but it's not abated because of an abatement I went and obtained. It's abated because it's in the CRA. The Trolley District property also is abated if I did apartments or if I did office. But the fact that the public, the community wants a public market, that actually then put us out of that space. So it was a cognizant choice on our part to give the community what they wanted and give up that abatement. However, that's what brought up the DRD component, because as a developer, we just need the market to be able to stay open.
That was my question.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes, just very quick. And I'm asking this on a totally different community hat, because we've heard this about the housing and that it's affordable housing. Is it affordable market rate housing, or is it affordable low-income housing? Define affordable.
That's a great question. So the set aside is 10% at 80% AMI, area median income, and the area median income over there is very low.
Right.
So 80% AMI and the Near East Side compared to 80% AMI downtown are two different things. So there's 10% at 80% AMI, and there's 10% at 100% AMI. 100% AMI is a teacher. It's $44,000. So this isn't something to where we're trying to pump a bunch of high net worth individuals over there and get them in. It's one, and really with this CRA, this is one of the ones that we didn't have to do the affordable housing component. We're doing it by choice. So, we want to have units to where the neighborhood can move into the units, but it's going to be nice. They're going to be nice apartments.
And some of the Ohio Capital Corp units are much more affordable than that.
Yeah, those are 30 to 60% area median income. Right.
And that comes out to about what? 1,000 a month?
That's extreme poverty, 17,000 to 22,000 a year.
But how much would say the monthly?
So one bedroom would be $550 plus
Now
utilities.
you're talking. Okay.
$550.
So we're talking somewhere
Utilities,
between.
$625, a two bedroom. For the Ohio Capital Corporation for Housing, ones would be, $750 to $850.
I think that's understandable, because people may not understand AMI, PMI, but if you say it's between $550 a month to $800 a month.
80% AMI would be anywhere between, I want to say, $850 and $1,000, $850 and $1,050. So this isn't something that we can go and ask $1,700 a month for. It's just not.
It's not a downtown product.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
We want to sell to this neighborhood. We want to be a part of this neighborhood. This neighborhood will make this successful. We have to make the neighborhood successful.
So our plan is to have this before the board for a vote at our next meeting. Can you talk a little bit about your process, starting with, that next meeting? And then if you get the further approvals, I'm understanding that city council has to do some approval process. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yes.
And then speak to the timeline, like how soon would this project be up and running, from beginning to completion, where we're literally doing some ribbon cutting? If you could talk about those two things for me, please.
So the timeline, so there's two tracks here. There's a school district track, required by state law. Then there's a city council track required by state law. They got to work in unison. So my recollection of this is that on November 14th, city council has to have a public hearing by law. And that'll be on the 14th of November, I believe. And then you adopt this on the 19th. We hope and pray for this neighborhood on the 19th of November. And then the city council comes back, and I think, what's December, what? December 9th. First hearing's the 9th, and then the second hearing is the 16th of December. The 16th of December is when city council will hopefully approve this. They'll go through a process, so first reading, second reading, and then they have a closing the next day. I think on the 17th of December. And on that date, there's new market tax credits, there are historic tax credits, both state and federal. There's all these financing mechanisms that have to come to bear, and what keeps it all together is this DRD. Without the DRD, these other things can't happen. So this all kind of fit together in a financial puzzle that all closes on December 17th. So, Brad, I understand you want to start construction as soon as possible?
Yes.
After.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we will invite you to the ribbon cutting. And then when the food market is built, we'll all share an apple or an orange or a pear. If you'd like tomatoes, we'll do that too.
Board Member Adair?
We started talking about the housing component.
Yes.
I just want to be clear on what it is we are considering for vote at our next meeting.
For the market. I didn't raise the housing component because it's not part of what we need to do. The housing component is separate and distinct, although it's part of the development, same developer, but it has nothing to do with what we're trying to do with this food market.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your presentation. We'll look forward to seeing you at our next meeting.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
good
your
night.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, colleagues, let's move on. Item number 11, board matters. This is our resolution to authorize the agreement with the Columbus School Employees Association, Ohio Association of Public School Employees, AFSCME Local 4, AFL-CIO. And I'd like to ask President Carson to come to the podium, along with anyone else she deems appropriate at this time, and I'll read the resolution. Whereas representatives of the Board of Education and the Columbus School Employees Association, Ohio Association of Public School Employees, AFSCME Local 4, AFL-CIO, have reached tentative agreement on a reopener to the September 1st, 2017 to August 31st, 2020 collective bargaining agreement. And whereas the attached document contains the terms developed through the bargaining process and ratified by the Columbus School Employees Association on October 29th, 2019, and now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the agreement with the Columbus School Employees Association based on the terms described above, and be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent prior to printing and with the agreement of the Columbus School Employees Association to make minor editorial corrections and changes as needed, provided such corrections and changes do not result in any modification of intent and substance. Be it further resolved that the President, Superintendent, and Treasurer be authorized and directed to affix their signatures to the agreement and as necessary to the memoranda of understanding as identified in the agreement as herein described between the Board of Education and the Columbus School Employees Association. That's a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Colleagues, are there questions or thoughts on the resolution prior to us taking our vote? Mr. Treasurer, would you mind calling the roll?
Ms. Reyes? Ms. Adair? President Baker?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Thank you, colleagues. President Carson, the floor is yours.
I just say thank you for this wage opener negotiation. Just want to remind you that we will be going into full-blown negotiation after the first of the year. I had some of my team here earlier, and they need to report to work at 5 a.m. and 6 a.m., so I excused them to let them carry on and go home to get ready for work at 5 a.m. I'm going to ask my chief negotiator, are we signing, or my chief negotiator, if he would join me in signing. And again, on behalf of the OPSI CSCA members that we represent, we thank you for bargaining in good faith on this wage opener. As Shauna likes to say, to those of you who are listening, this was not a full-blown negotiation. This was a wage opener only. We will go into full-blown negotiation sometime in the spring. But on behalf of myself and Mr. Washington, we thank you.
I would like to, on behalf of the board, thank you both, not only for negotiating in good faith, as you always do, but also for your leadership that you have provided President Carson for these many years, and you as well. Andre Washington has been a good addition to your team. So let's give this agreement a round of applause. And would you like to sign now? Yes, President Carson, of course.
This is to you, President Baker.
Yes, ma'am.
You and I have signed over the past few years quite a few contracts. We have hollered and screamed and negotiated, and I just want you to know, and you, Miss Shauna Gibbs, that I'm going to miss you guys. I know I will have the opportunity to say it again before you leave, but I do appreciate that when we have negotiated contracts, that though I might have not always agreed, might not always like what you gave us, I can say that I do respect that you guys heard us. And so that, sir and madam, I'm truly going to miss. So on behalf of the members, I stand here tonight saying thank you for your leadership. Thank you for bargaining in good faith.
Thank you. Thank you, President Carson. Thank you to all parties involved in the reopener and its successful conclusion. Thank you very much. And in fact, if you were on the team, why don't you stand up if you were part of this negotiating process? Stand up. If you were part of the negotiating, stand up and be recognized. Thank you very much. Thank you, and we'll be back at it soon. All right, very good. Let's move on to item 11.2, and I'm going to call on Board Member Adair, if you're prepared.
I am reporting tonight on behalf of the Policy Committee Chair, Eric Brown, who is not with us this evening. Fellow colleagues, before you tonight, there are revisions to board bylaws and to several board policies. You have been given these documents previous, and this is the first reading of the legislation. So you will find that the various amendments to the attached policies are made to conform with statutory and regulatory requirements. That's most of these. I'll highlight a few of them for your attention. Policy 2431 has a change to conform with an amendment to the Ohio High School Athletic Association's bylaws regarding student eligibility. Policy 2450 has a change to enable qualifying adult education students to access eligible tuition funds paid by the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. And in policies, there's several of them, Policy 2111, 2261, have changes to conform with the Every Student Succeeds Act and Policy 5200, 7300, and 8462 have various provisions that were required by the Ohio General Assembly. So please take a look at those. There's really nothing too controversial. We kind of have to do them. So if you do have any questions or anything like that before we vote on this, please let Chair Brown know or Dr. Roush as our liaison. In addition to those changes that I just mentioned, you will also find a substantial revision to Board Bylaw 0147, particularly as it relates to the topic of board travel. I first want to thank the subcommittee of individuals that came together and had a robust discussion about this topic, and I believe we have found a balance between sound fiscal stewardship and transparency around this policy. Again, this is something you have, and if there is anything that you have questions on or want to propose different language to, please let us know in writing, probably is better, and you can give that to Dr. Roush. But I will highlight and summarize some of the changes that have been recommended. First, require an annual calendar of board conferences, conventions, and workshops to be presented to the board simultaneously with the presentation of the budget. A requirement that the board approve attendees as soon as practicable to said conferences, thus enabling the district to take advantage of lower rates. Setting an expectation that not more than 3 members attend unless otherwise approved by the board. Encourages members to take advantage of local or low-cost opportunities and grants prior approval for those in-state conferences, conventions, workshops, and webinars that are not part of the annual calendar, provided the cost is less than $500. So there's a lot of OSBA classes and things that we can take here that are local. Prioritizes those professional development opportunities that best align to the strategic plan of the district. For new members, or for members presenting at conferences, or for a member representing the district in some capacity. Prohibits district-paid out-of-state travel to members knowingly in the last 6 months of their term unless designated by the board to represent the district. Reiterates that members are expected to report back to the board after attending a conference that was on district expense, and really any conference, because everyone should be reporting, but that's not in here, that's a side note. And clarifies public events for which admission may be purchased on behalf of a member by the district. So, for example, buying tickets or tables to events. So I am happy to answer any questions you have now, or you can submit questions to Dr. Roush or provide written comments to Dr. Roush or redlined edits on the policy to Dr. Roush. Otherwise, if there are no questions, this will conclude the first reading of the proposed amendment to Bylaw 0147 and the board policies I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Adair, and that does constitute first reading of those changes. So, seeing no questions, thank you for standing in. Board Member Brown is excused. He's out of town this evening, or otherwise he would have been with us. Let's move on then to our consent agenda. Is there a motion that it be accepted as it's presented? Moved and seconded. Colleagues, any questions on any piece of legislation contained within the consent agenda this evening? Board Member Gibbs.
Just want to thank all of the companies that have donated to our schools, the donations for music and from our PTAs and from the Department of Agriculture. Thank you to everyone who's donated to support our students. That's item 26.1 through item 26.5.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. That's a good call out. Board Member Adair.
As always, I just want to speak really quickly about those HR actions and say thank you to all of the new staff and those that are signing up to take on extra responsibilities in our district. That's helpful. And also call attention to 20 20.2, which is the Operation Fix It HVAC. So Hay Medina, Richview, Alpine, Cranbrook, Eakin, and Scottwood. We're going to work on your air conditioning and HVAC.
Any other comments or questions, colleagues? All right, Mr. Treasurer?
Ms. Adair? President Baker?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs? Mr. Ragland?
Yes, with the exception of 14.1, on which I vote no.
Ms. Reyes? Yes. Motion carried.
Thank you very much, Mr. Treasurer. Colleagues, announcements, points of pride. I believe we may have some photographs to share with you this evening. Here's one. So this is Sherwood. So we were distributing, so in conjunction with our partners at Columbus City Council, who helped to provide reflectors for us to distribute to some of our students to make them safe when they are walking to and from school, especially in dark. We distributed at a number of our schools those reflectors. You see there, that's Principal Evans on the left at Sherwood, myself, Councilmember Favor, Board Member Gibbs. Those are the reflectors that we gave to the students. They can clip them on their book bags or coats or wherever they might like to put them. These are some students actually from the Ridge who helped us to distribute the reflectors at Sherwood that day, and they were great, great students. Special thanks to our partners at the city for helping to make this possible. So Interim Director Smito, please take that gratitude back from the board. And here we are. This is actually earlier today when the 21st superintendent of Columbus City Schools was on the panel at the CMC luncheon. In fact, she was the panel today. So she did a great job. You see every board member there with the exception of Mr. Brown, who's out of town, and many of our fine staff were there in support. She did a wonderful job, was very well received, and kudos, superintendent. Very, very good job. Anything else? All right. Colleagues, Board Member Adair. Please do.
Because I'm proud to say that my alma mater has made school history with their football team. And for the first time, not only did they have a wonderful season, but they are going to the state playoffs. So go Stars. Centennial Stars. And I would give a huge shout out to head football coach Dante Gooseby, who is my class. He was my football player when I was a cheerleader, who is leading that team to victory. And I just encourage everyone, I mean, this is a big deal, and I know Walnut Ridge, and I'll let James say something about that. It's a big, big deal, and it's a you know, we're going across the state, so if you can go out and support or, you know, catch it on, I'm sure somebody will be streaming it somewhere, but I just want to give a huge shout out to the Centennial Stars and the players and the families and everyone that worked so hard this season. James, do you have a shout out?
Board Member Ragland?
Yeah, yes, I do. Thank you very much, because
Yes.
I would not have been able to get inside my house if I did not mention that the Walnut Ridge Scots also made history with a 10-0 season this year. They will be taking on Xenia this Friday at Xenia, and so I know that there's a large contingent from the east side, but I cannot leave out the Marion Franklin Red Devils, who are also in the playoffs as well. So City League South football has done quite well this football season. I do want to make sure that I mention, President Baker, if you
Yes,
don't
sir.
mind,
Yes, sir.
our Engage to Empower Literacy Night that will take place on December 4. That is a Wednesday. December 4 at the Oakley Full Gospel Baptist Church. We will begin that program at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Thank you, President.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Board Member Gibbs?
Yes, thank you very much, President Baker, and thank you for the segue from Board Member Adair. One of those incredible local opportunities to learn and serve is at the Ohio School Board Conference. It will kick off on Sunday, November 10th, and it will go through Tuesday, November 12th. So we will have a different date for Innovation and Reform Committee meeting, but if you want to take advantage of the thousands of people. It is one of the largest conferences in the country. We go back and forth with Chicago and Illinois only by 200 or 300 people. So it's about 10,000 people that will be in Central Ohio, all across, all the districts across Ohio, as well as expertise, vendors, professionals, performers from all across the country. And if there's information that you want to know, there's probably a learning track. One of the great things about the Ohio School Board Association, which I've had the privilege to serve on the board for the last 5 years, is that after so many members sign up, the rest of your staff can come for free. So it's a leveraged opportunity, and it's an unlimited learning opportunity. And for that, I am very happy and very glad. So when we talk about professional development, I hope we're taking advantage of it. So if we're not going to go to the travel to go see it, it's coming right down the street to High Street, and I hope we all take advantage of that. And secondly, and not lastly, I don't count it out of order to congratulate Board Member Adair, Board Member Ragland, and Board Member Brown on their election to continue to lead and serve on this board, and to Carol Beckerly and to Dr. Tina Pierce. Carol is in the back. She's strength and conditioning right now. That's right. That's right. And to Dr. Tina Pierce. And in January, you will have a team that will take up a lot of this work and these decisions. So congratulations on that achievement. You are all now tied to this chair. You asked for it, you got it. But thank you very much, and congratulations to everyone across all of the levies that passed for the school districts, all of the other new school board candidates across Central Ohio and the state and the nation. We always have people who are engaged in this work, and we are inspired that more people sign up to come. So, President Baker, just thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs.
And thank you all for this.
Yes. Any other points of pride? Anything else you'd like to share? All right. Well, then I will ask the Vice President to offer a motion. But before he does, colleagues, I'd just like to thank you. There was a lot of work before us this evening. I want to thank you for your thoughtful deliberation and discussions and the pre-work, the homework that you all had to do before this meeting. Thank you very much for exercising your duties with decorum and commitment and dedication. You have my gratitude. Mr. Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Board of Education recess into executive session per section 121.22G1, Ohio Revised Code, to consider the appointment, employment, or compensation of employees.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer, please call the roll.
President Baker?
Yes.
Vice President Cole? Yes. Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Ms. Adair? And that motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. The board will now recess into executive session. We will adjourn from those chambers without returning to these. Thank you. Have a good evening.